Hello, my lovely chows of the internet. It is I, Multi126789, other known as Multi-Man, and it is that time of the year again. It is December 25th, and it's time for our lovely tradition of my games of this year. Now, again, I need to reiterate this every year. The games of this year are a list of games that I have played this year that I am basically showing in a video to tell you what I rank from what I've played and completed. So before anybody starts making comments before saying, well, this one clearly got this game of the year, so why didn't you put it on your list? I didn't get a chance to play it, okay? First of all, before we even continue too, I know Clear's Obscure Expedition 33 swept the Game Awards, okay? And I wish I got to play it. I lost my job, and then when it came out, I couldn't buy it, and then I was trying to find a job and then get money so I can pay my bills, so I didn't get a chance to play it. Now, did I watch somebody play it? Yes, I did. But I don't feel good and honest about putting something on my Game of the Year list that I didn't actually play. I didn't have any feel for. And like I said, I have no discredit to that team or anything. I'm just letting you know. But see, this is why I'm making this preface, because I have played a whole bunch of other games this year. I've played probably a total of 30, but I'm making it a little bit smaller this year, and I'm putting it down to 23. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that's insane. 23 games you're going to talk about? This year, we're going to have a different little system that we got going on. We're going to talk about like 5 or 6 games at the beginning here that are going to be like 10 minutes long. Then we're going to have a break to like do a little mini montage of like games that are smaller that I know I played, that I don't have as much to say about, that are going to be 3 minutes, so we don't have like 4 or 5 hour video this year, because I keep getting worried every time I do this, tradition every year, that I'm going to play too much stuff to the point where I'm going to never have time to finish this. For reference, right now is December the 15th when I'm recording this. I technically did an intro about a month ago, but I decided to change it because I have gone and realized that the original one isn't very good. So yep. So as you can see, also, if you just are interested in seeing certain games that I'm going to talk about this year, they're down in the link in the description, where you can go ahead and click the chapters, because I know you guys like clicking chapters instead of, having to sit through a multi-layered like feature film presentation. So I give you guys that option. And as always, thank you guys for watching on Christmas. I hope you guys have a good New Year. But let's go ahead and get into this year's 2025 games of this year with your host, Multi126789. Alright, so this first game of the year is probably going to ruin my AdSense forever when anybody watches my video from here until the near future, but I don't think that it's appropriate to start with anything else than a sequel or a new game from a developer, Chowbee, who brought us Wedding Witch last year, which I think a lot of you were very surprised when you got to the part of the video where I talked about his game, because a lot of you can't play a video game that has attractive female characters without losing your mind. So I hope you guys are buckled in, because like I said, we're going to be talking about Nunholy. Now, Nunholy is a video game that I was anticipating to play last year, to be on last year's game of the list, but I got pushed back to the beginning of this year. And, to be fair, I'm kind of glad I still waited to be able to play it for this year, so I could talk about another one of their games, because honestly, as you're seeing on screen, yes, they have a very distinct art style and a very distinct way that they make their characters. And listen, if you can't handle the heat, don't worry, you won't need to go in the kitchen. First of all, if you want to play this game on Steam, you would have to take away the mature rating that would show sensitive games such as this. Again, there's nothing too crazy about this game other than the characters and the character models. Everything else is very tame. There's no, you know, sneaky little 18 plus scenes in the game or anything. I can promise you that. It's mostly just good gameplay, or at least gameplay that I know from the developer that I really like because of how they use their power-up system and how they like taking concepts from other games and trying to make it their own spin on it. And for this one, it's going to be like Hades. Now, all of you know, how is the one developer who's making an entire game from scratch up making a game like Hades? Now, I will say this is Hades at home, like budget title Hades. Like you can buy this game, I think, for less than $20. If I'm wrong, hey, me, put it up on screen. But I'm pretty sure that this game is fairly cheap, but it gives you the same amount of experience that you would for Hades, but also with a cool few twists that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So, first of all, there's no voice acting in the game. Sorry. If they had voice acting in the game, that would be crazy. But it's all text dialogue, just like Pokemon, ZA. So you guys will have to forgive the small indie developers for not having voice acting. But it's okay because it makes up for it in the art and the gameplay department. Now, as always, like I said, and I mentioned at the beginning of this, the art in this game is kind of crazy. I don't think it's going too far in the realm of like being too hot to handle. But again, if you haven't played games that have, you know, either anime tropes or the more like Western style art, this could be a little bit off-putting. And again, I did mention that you do have to take off the Steam mature rating settings so you can play this game. But I promise you that there's nothing crazy in this game. I promise. The only thing that's crazy in this game, which is now what we're going to talk about, is the gameplay. Now, the gameplay of this game is like Hades. You have a dash button, you have an attack button, you have some extra buttons for like specials, and then you have a extra button for like a side attack. Now, in this game, that's very interesting because, again, I've played and beaten this game with 3 different characters because, hey, in this game, you get to choose between 3 different types of styles. You get the first one that is the, I believe, axe style, and you use a really heavy axe that does a lot of melee damage and has wider swinging attacks, and then has a secondary as a shotgun, which is pretty cool. 2, we got sword, which uses quick fury of attacks and uses magic to allow your swords to be shot out like projectiles and other things. And then finally, we have my favorite, which is the big gun. So the big gun is really broken in this game because you're able to use ammo to shoot out regular attacks, depending on whatever attack you choose. I choose the flamethrower, and then when you reload the weapon, it actually shoots out an even bigger blast that travels a distance depending on how much heat you use for your secondary attack. Which is kind of cool because that's a concept that I never really thought about for like a weapon where it's like, oh, you have a main type of weapon ammo, and then once it gets used, you reload it, and then it shoots out basically the excess heat overheat, which is super cool. And yeah, like, each of these different characters play wildly differently. So your like, the way that you play this game is that you can either choose to go into a room, and then when you beat a room, you sometimes have the option of getting, like, different types of permutations that you put in a suitcase that you can fit in whatever way you would like. You get a level up system where you can either use risk or reward, where you, instead of getting experience, you can get money to buy better equipment to stack up your certain benefits that you're using for your run. Each character has 9 different play styles, or 9 different ways to play, with 3 different types of main weapon attachments, 3 different sub-weapon attachments, and 3 different special, or, you know, their bomb or grenade or whatever type special that's also different. And again, this is what makes this replay value pretty good, because like I said, I think I've put at least 20 hours into this game, because I played every single character, beat every single route. Didn't get S rank with all of them, because it's not necessary to get all the achievements, but I did get all the achievements for this game, so I'm happy about that. But you can play just one file and get all the achievements, or you can play all the different characters and find which one you want, or which one you like. Now, the difficulty curve in this game basically stays pretty, like, it gets challenging until you get to the point where, like most roguelikes, you get enough upgrades to make yourself feel pretty confident. The enemies in this game are pretty generic, I will say. I will be honest and say, not all of the enemies in here have, like, oh, a riveting type. Like, we have a zombie, we have a priestess, we have dogs, we have spiders, we have random ghouls and ghosts. Not, the designs aren't too, like out of this world. But the gameplay is fun enough to try and experiment with all kinds of different builds for whatever character you're playing, that it kind of carries the gameplay. Because Chowby, that's how I'm going to call them, because I don't know if I pronounce her name right, but that's what I'm going to call the developer. Ever since I played Weathering Witch, understands the concept that I like, which is I would rather be able to stack or try to mix and match what things I would like to stack for powers to be overpowered. Because for me, the joy of playing a video game comes from wanting to be able to experiment and try all kinds of different things and see what works, and then trying to overcome obstacles using that. Now, again, the story of this game isn't anything to write home about. It's your basic story of women needing to take down this really scary vampire that's taking over the realm. And you, as the well-endowed hero, is going to do that. And that's basically the plot. Other NPCs will talk to you about your journey and ask you how you're doing, and will give you many different things to do. Like, you'll have checklists to do for your runs so you can get achievements, so you can get money, so you can spend that money on getting permanent upgrades that allow you to be stronger, or to change the way that the gameplay works because of the different type of element or style of gameplay that you would like because you favor that over other ones. Now, like I said, I'm very impressed with this game because even though it's not graphically anything to write home about, or even, I will say it's not even that challenging, because if you really wanted to, within 2 or 3 runs of the game, once you learn certain enemy patterns, you can kind of just go ahead and then beat the game. You are required to get to the bottom of the game, which is 4 dungeons in, about 3 times, and then you're able to fight the true final boss, and then you are done the game. For me, I think that took about 5 or 6 hours. Like I said, each run is about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how far you are in the game. And I do think that it has a good pace and a good way for character and player expression to choose the type of, not only girl that you wanted to start off with, but then also had to evolve the main character that you chose, so you can then have different types of gameplay styles while you're playing the dungeons. And which is why I'm showing you all of this while I'm talking, because, again, as you're probably even watching this, you're probably like, wow, I think I would like to play this character with the style like this, because I think that would be the most interesting for me. Like I said, this game probably will go on sale, whether it's early next year or near any of the other Steam bundle sales. I definitely think it's worth a pickup if you liked anything about Wedding Witch that I talked about last year, because it's an excellent game, and I did beat 3 different character slots. I was hoping that there was some super cool thing if you beat the game with all 3 characters, that we were going to unlock a 4th character for the 4th save slot, but alas, there wasn't. So I'm sorry if that disappoints anybody, because it did disappoint me a little bit. But I really do like this game, and it was the first game I played of this year in January, and thank you, Chobi, for showing me another game that really allows me to have character expression and allows me to power up my characters in any way I like. And this is why you are one of the games of this year, and the reason why we started off this video strong. But we will see you guys for the next game of this year in just a moment, and thank you, Chobi, so much for making another peak game in the styles of Hades. Now, next on our games of this year list is Lunistis. As you can tell, I still struggle to say the name of this game, but Lunistis is a 3D platformer game that I am talking about that came out actually 2 years or 3 years ago. I think it came out in 2022 on Steam and other platforms, so you can actually buy this on the Nintendo Switch. It's actually probably a really good game to have on the Nintendo Switch. It's a very small but slightly big 3D platformer game that's a collectathon, but also just a regular old 3D platformer with a little bit of a twist. Where have you heard that before? Who knows? But yes, Lunistis is a game that I played very early on in the year. I was like looking around for my backlog of things that I've bought and that I wanted to play, and this one caught my eye because, you know, the pretty little Tanuki / raccoon character that was on the front, and I was like, okay, bet, let's do it. So Lunistis is a game that has how do I describe it? It has quite a few, like, very curated 7 or 8 levels that you play through as your character, as you're trying to unlock the mysteries of why this program was created for your character, the secrets behind why Lunistis is a thing that was born, why it's taking over the world, and all yada yada and other things. Like I said, the plot kind of takes a back seat to the gameplay, so most of the stuff we're going to be talking about is going to be mostly the gameplay. And also, you're probably noticing something on the actual video, is that our gameplay is actually coming from multiple different sources. That's because after you beat the main game as the main character, unlock everything and beat the final level, which we won't show off for spoiler's sake. That, and also I just didn't get the footage for it. You get to play as other characters that have other abilities for platforming and doing other things, which is very cool, because again, playing as the main character, you have a regular double jump, and then an extra like attack that gives you a little bit of air momentum. So you can kind of do some really fun and cool stuff with that. Your character's abilities don't ever like get upgraded or change that much over the course of the game. You're kind of stuck with what you start with, and then you just kind of adapt each situation for what you can do. There's the second character, which doesn't have an attack at all and has a lot of high speed and mobility, but literally you can only take one hit, and if they get hit, they die. And another one who has a 5 jump that is not as good as her double jump, but allow her to actually have extra like movement. Like, because you have 5 jumps and a right attack that attacks straight forward, you can actually do a lot of really interesting skips if you know the timing and the way to use your 5 jumps to be able to glide or jump down from spaces like that are really high up. Now, in general, Odyssey has a very interesting like design, you know? Since this is a 3D platformer / collectathon game, to get the most out of the game, you want to go out of your way sometimes and like just explore so you can collect enough collectibles to reach the end and then get that elusive A rank. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't get A rank on every single stage, but I tried to, because collecting all the little star nodes, which usually is what the thing that you are collecting for each stage, or little colored nodes, there's usually around anywhere between 100 to like 300 for most stages, and if not, even more. So they do ask a lot of you to like be the perfect collectathon to get the A rank to be able to continue on your game, you know? And also there's a rank for also doing it in a fast speed as well. And again, if you don't take any damage or don't die any, there's also a rank for that. But again, it's more about playing at your own pace and having fun, enjoying the different types of landscapes as we're seeing here. We start off with the traditional Japanese garden, to going to the beach, to going to an amusement park, to going to a really cool autumn forest looking area. But one thing I would like to really highlight, which really makes me like this game, the music in this game is very, very good. Which probably for the next couple minutes, I'll let you guys listen to some of the music tracks as we, you know, really take in like the atmosphere of the game. And again, unless I started a new file, there are some atmospheric things that are a little bit off-putting when playing the game, but you will have to experience it for yourself if you decide to buy this game. This game is around like, I don't know, $15, and if it's not on sale, by the way. And I guess you can buy it, since you can buy it on the Nintendo Switch, you might be able to find it for cheaper because it's been on the platform for probably a couple years. And if you have it on Steam, it frequently goes on sale depending on whenever there's Steam sales or anything else. So I definitely see that there's no reason for you not to buy this unless you don't like 3D platformers, which at that point I'm like, sure dude, I agree, and if you don't want to play it, then that's fine. And like I said, the game is relatively short. I think I beat it in one evening, maybe 2, because I think it takes about 5 or 6 hours, maybe even 7, to like get all the way through the game. But like I said, if you just sit down and play the game and just enjoy it, and if you're not trying to collect everything, you probably can beat it in one setting, and then try all the other characters, and then go back and do all the collectathon stuff afterwards. But I really enjoyed playing this game a lot. Like I said, the music, the atmosphere, the different types of challenges they have you do, and each world having its own theme on what you need to do and what you need to achieve to be able to escape each world and then get closer and closer to the truth, was really fun. Me genuinely thinks sorry, I went into the third person there. I genuinely think that this game is actually super not talked about. I even tried to look for like certain reviews about the game, and I only got like maybe like a handful of people who reviewed or even played the game. But like I said, it's a very low-key game from a low-key developer that also makes, I think this developer makes a whole bunch of other games too that are the same concept of a 3D platformer with unique different types of movement options and stuff that you can just use and do stuff. But I forget the developers' names off my top of my head, so please don't hurt me. I'm sorry, okay? But like, genuinely, really impressed with Lunacy or Luna Side. I can't Lunasis. Again, the name is so hard to pronounce, and they never say it because again, all the text and all the story is brought through dialogue boxes, so I kind of get stumped and worried, you know, because it's tough, bro. It's tough out here, man. I'm sorry, but thank you, Lunacy or Lunasci, for being one of the games of this year, and I very much appreciate your wonderful platforming music and platforming gameplay that brought me to this point of the games of this year. And that's how the West was won. Here at the Games of This Year video, we are here at West of Dead. Isometrical, I forget what the term is, but you know, a slightly eagle-viewed, top-down, roguelike shooter game. So, this was a game that was recommended to me by one of my friends. His name is Shawwolf. He's pretty cool, and he has also good game taste, like myself. So when he recommended that there was a new roguelike in town, I was like, oh yes, I am going to be all over that. I want to play a new game that has a different type of style to the roguelikes I already like. So I give this a try, and West of Dead is very interesting because it's more focused on its gunplay and cover fire sort of gameplay versus its other contemporaries like Hades and even like None Holy that we talked about before. Most of this game is about keeping behind cover, using your guns, using your positioning and the objects around you to obstruct your enemies, destroy your enemies, stun your enemies, and, you know, serve justice to those who are unjust, you know? The aesthetic of this game is pretty good. As you can tell, it got its own motif with the fiery red and otherworldly western, while also the main character basically looking like Hellrider. Like, let's be honest here. The uncanny resemblance to a flaming skull is kind of written all over this man, but I can't say that it was a bad choice because it's a very memorable, you know, sort of get-up, you know, with his western outfit. A person who lost his memories but still wants to be on the side of justice, and that's basically the premise of the game. Now, if you were to ask me about the story of the game, I'll be so for real. I played this back in January, and most of it just read to me as a guy who used to be a very cool vigilante slash, I don't know. I wouldn't say like cowboy per se, but like somebody who used to be on the side of justice, who ended up falling into a wrong crowd of people who were, you know, converting people into their religion, but was taking advantage of people and doing some unholy things. So when he died and then got reincarnated as a soul, he took it upon himself to rewrite a lot of the bad people who were taking advantage of other people while he was alive, and, you know, setting the souls free while also giving justice to all of those who would dare defile, you know, these people and, you know, the innocence of those who didn't have anything to do with this whole overarching plot. Now, I will talk about some of the things that I like about West of the Dead here, and then we're going to talk about some of the shortcomings, because West of the Dead is a very good game. I very much enjoy the gunplay. There are plenty of weapons and different types of variety of builds to build. A lot of the powering up in this game is based on what you choose is, like, what you would benefit or what you like more. Like, if you like using your active items, which you get 2 of, you can make a build that's centered around that. If you like gunplay and just want to strengthen your weapons, there's that, and you can just strengthen your weapons. If you want to make sure that you have a lot of HP so you don't die to a random stray attack from a person that you can't see out of the corner of a room because it's dark, then you can choose HP. As you can tell, I basically leaned more towards using gunplay with very good guns that I like, that have a lot of range. The sniper that you're seeing in these clips is probably one of my favorite ones to use because not only do I have basically infinite range, but also the damage fall off isn't bad, and then it has a high stun chance when you shoot somebody, pretty fun. And then HP is my second, and then usually I worry about my cooldowns on my secondary / sub weapons a lot later, because to me, I usually just focus on hit hard with my main stuff first, worry about survivability, and then if I have really good sub weapons, then I worry about filling up those later. Also in this game, like I said, there is progression where basically as you kill enemies and you keep doing requests for characters that are asking you to help save them by getting curses, by you taking more damage, but you getting more of the currency, which is basically souls. Basically, as you go through each dungeon and each run, each time you end up getting to a safe space after beating a dungeon, which there's usually 4 of them or 5 of them in a run, really just depends on what type of run you're doing, but there is usually that many floors, and then you face a final boss of a sort. Once you get there, each floor you get to take a rest and repose, learn about some story stuff, which you will either care or not care about, depending on the type of player you are. For me, I didn't really care about the story too much because sometimes the cutscenes ran a little bit long, and also then they didn't usually tell you anything that you couldn't already give or get from context clues, other than you learn a little bit more about the main character's backstory and his relations to other people. But even still, I'm just like, it's okay, I'm just here for the gunplay, bro. You don't have to stop my progress of playing the game and to do that. But also you can unlock weapons and other types of passive upgrades, extra types of, secondary equipment through this method. And you can just buy and try and do whatever you would like as you continue playing the game. But now it's time to talk about a little bit of the negatives of the game. And I only have a few, mostly because this game is a roguelike, and most roguelikes, to me, personally, shouldn't take more than like 40 minutes to complete, but I will say, like I said, when you play this game, it takes a lot longer. I don't know if it's because of the floor size of each of the levels, or because of how the backtracking in this game works, because as you continue on and beat more of the game, you actually unlock other perks and other skills that allow you to like take different shortcuts or try to check different items, or allow you to do different things that you wouldn't be able to do on your like first or second run, because you obtained a new power that allows you to now have alternate pathways that you can take. Now, to be fair, if you want to like speed run the game and just go down to each floor, you can instead of getting power-ups, but you're gonna most definitely wind up finding yourself in a little bit of a trouble if you pass up too many of the goodies. But sometimes also the goodies aren't even good enough to be picking up sometimes, because the ones that I kind of would only recommend trying to look for are the ones that give you passive damage upgrade, your cooldown timers on your secondaries, or your health increase, But, you can find shops to find better weapons, and each weapon in the game has, like, tiers. So, like, if you find a weapon that you have, but it has a higher number, that means you're getting a higher amount of damage, and so on and so forth. So sometimes it's better just to switch off weapons to experiment and to try different amounts of, like, weapon variety and trying to get higher damage by switching off a weapon that, even though it might have good damage now, it might fall off in a little bit to something that has, oh, this is a tier 3 of this different weapon, and so it has higher damage and some other perks, But, I mean, I will say that the footage that you got for West of Dead is about an hour and 40 minutes for an entire run. Now, some of it's some of my fault, because sometimes I would backtrack and look for stuff. But also, like I said, every single time that you play this game, you're going to be stopped for a necessary story. You're going to be stopped to spend all of your souls on the floor that you got previously. And like I said, this game has a very bad habit of sometimes making rooms or certain types of tasks last a little bit too long. And I don't know if there's a real good way to solve it, because like I said, backtracking in this game, there are teleporters, unlike other games where you can actually teleport around and get to like certain parts of the map. But like I said, also each floor usually ends up having at least 8 to like 14 battle rooms, which some of them are long, some of them are short, but some of them just take a long time, because again, it's still the gameplay I told you guys, which is still gun gameplay where you're hiding behind cover, and the enemies can do that too. But also the enemies have really clear advantage by having numbers and can hide in darkness and you not being able to see them. But again, it's about you using your intuition and using the stuff around you to really excel yourself through the game. Now, the only reason I haven't played more than like 20 hours of this game is basically because even though I beat the game like multiple times at this point, there's plenty of story, I guess, that still goes on even after you beat the quote-unquote final boss of the game, and you can keep playing it to get further and further and deeper into the game. But again, since the runs take so long, and it's not like something you can beat in like a half an hour sitting, or even 45, it usually takes an hour to an hour and a half to get a really good run, and then be finished it. It kind of leads on the side of being a little bit too long, because unlike Unholy that we talked about at the beginning, Unholy you could probably beat in like an hour sitting or less, and that would be like the upper maximum. But this game is like, you definitely would be spending about an hour to an hour and a half to like see the full run through. And that's also accounting for if you want to do everything so you can actually learn story and actually get more powered up by doing like mini side quests to fight harder enemies, to get better stats, and to make your character really solid for the final boss or any of the bosses that you come up against. Because one of the things I will say about this game too is that some of these bosses in this game feel very overtuned. Like, there's not too many times where I feel like difficulty spikes in these sorts of games are really bad, but I do feel like there's some times where I'm just like, if you have a certain weapon combination and you're fighting a certain enemy, you will feel the disadvantage that you have because of the fact that it doesn't feel fair to fight certain enemies because they still can use the same things as you, which makes it a bit difficult. But I still think overall, West of Dead is a very good game that I think you should try. It's around $20 on Steam, and definitely if you like any of the gameplay or any of the stuff that you've seen on screen thus far, I would recommend it. I will say, this is a game that you basically play on your downtime, or if you're winding down for the day, because again, it is like an hour or two that you'd be spending playing the game, whether you're doing a run that gets you all the way through or not. So I definitely recommend the game, and I thank Shaw Wolf again for allowing me to enjoy such a wonderful game. And yes, this was one of my many games of the year, but let's take a different approach and let's speed up the pace a little bit with this next game of the year. No matter your funk or your taste, I think you're gonna have a fun time with this Haze. So Haze is a game that is something I played this year thanks to one of my friends, DMK, that I actually got introduced to this. Because I remember that this was actually shown off at a gaming event probably last year for one of the indie games that was going to be announced. That is basically a momentum platformer, but I more think of it as a momentum endless runner, where you're playing as this character and you're trying to get through each zone to get to the end by doing cool parkour tricks, timing your landings, and building up a bunch of speed and momentum to go blasting through stages. Now, again, I'm gonna really preface this. This game has a story mode, but I didn't play for the story mode. I saw the gameplay and I said, you know what? It's been a while since I just played a game that made me feel like I'm going super fast, I'm reacting to everything, I'm trying to get the best builds that I'm trying to get, so I just feel like every single run I'm doing is very, very powerful. So now, right now, you're probably watching me playing footage of the endless mode, because there's the regular campaign of this game, and then there's an endless mode that you can unlock, and then I believe there's a third mode, but I don't remember what that is off the top of my head. If you're playing this game to beat it, this game has 10 levels. Now, me personally, I'm going to say this is going to be the first controversial thing I have to say about Haste. If they took away 3 of the 10 levels, or even 4 of the 10 levels, probably would be a little bit better, because the pacing of the game really doesn't need to have all these types of levels, because I'll be 100% transparent, and I'm going to say something that might spoil the game a little bit, but once you play the first 3 levels, we start recycling and go back to the secondary versions of the first 3 levels, and then there's a third version of the first 3 levels. And that's all I'm gonna say, because each time you play like the first level, then you get to the boss, then there's gonna be a second version of it being slightly harder, and then a third version that's even harder than that. Now, do I think each of this version of this game, or each level of this game that has basically a different version of the boss needed a separate level? I don't really think so, but I guess it's also because of the story that I wasn't really following in the game. But basically the main premise of the story, to basically give you a TLDR, from what I remember of me playing it, and basically the premise of the game, is, hey, you are a person, right? You're a little deliverer who's like trying to deliver stuff in the world, but noticing that things are starting to break and decay because of these weird portals that these people who are trying to capitalize on you know, the industry of time and distortion are basically now starting to corrupt the world to the point where things are starting to rapidly deteriorate because of the crystals and the things that they are mining. So basically, you as this character then meet a whole bunch of different NPCs to tell you about the stuff and how the world's going to end and be completely enveloped upon itself because of all these crystals being harvested. And the only one that can stop them is you, because you are a really good, fast deliverer and you have these cool powers. I put in air quotations. You're just really good at delivering stuff. So they were just like, hey, could you do us a favor and like deliver all these crystals that are ending the world by destroying these bosses and machines that are like causing this and bringing them to us? And then the character's like, thumbs up, because they don't talk. But you know, you have cool quirky runs with quirky NPCs that will tell you more about lore and stuff if you are caring to listen. Like I said, this is the reason why you're seeing the endless mode, is because I did technically beat the game, but I literally did not listen or read a bunch of the commentary from all the characters, and I played it all the way back in like February or March, so it's been a while since I really clearly dug into the game. And you know, even though I've been doing these games of this year for X amount of years, I won't lie, I should probably start next time when I decide to play a game, actually take actual notes as we're doing this. But hey, if you wanted to play this game, you can get it on, I'm pretty sure, Steam, and I'm not sure if it's been on other consoles yet. And hey, me, if you're editing this, you can put it on screen if it's on other consoles, because that's work for you, not for me. But no, this game is really fun. And as you play for the game, you start learning and unlocking different equipment by beating levels, becoming better, and you get to choose your own paths. And like some of the paths that you choose aren't just a regular linear run straight through a level and just try not to die by the actual level closing in on you. There are some like mini games where it's like, oh, you gotta hit through rings, or oh, you gotta do a certain amount of tricks, or you gotta do really tight platforming to jump to huge gaps of islands instead of having like always having ground underneath your feet. And by learning how to like land perfectly to get boost, then to use your hoverboard to get extra speed, and then you learning how to most properly dodge out of all of the different types of visual effects and clutter that will be on your screen almost all the time, you become more and more aware of your surroundings and the flow state of this game that it gives you. Like, I won't lie, if I wanted to, I could just boot up this game and just play endless mode for like a good solid like 2 or 3 hours, and until I lost the run, I would just be playing that, because it'd be just simply, I wouldn't say it's junk food. I would say it's more like, it's definitely like well-crafted food that you could just take your time eating and just enjoying the actual act of eating, rather than trying to scoff it down because you're just super starving, you know? It's more something that you gotta delicately and methodically just enjoy for the state that it puts you in. And like I said, for this type of game too, I will say the only reason I'm okay with it having 10 different levels before you basically beat the game or get to the ending of the game is because it really does not challenge you until I think you get past the third stage that teaches you most of the gimmicks. But then afterwards they're like, okay, so what if we now ramped up how many things you have to dodge, or each stage now that you go to will have a new hazard that you have to worry about. We're not just talking lasers, we're not just talking missiles, we're not just talking random things that are gonna get in your way. We're talking like thorn bushes, we're talking about windmills that move, we're talking about laser domes, we're talking about mines, we're talking about literal rails that you can run across with missiles on them, where if you're going too fast, going through those rings that speed you up, they hit you. We're talking about literal laser walls. We're talking about literal small little cubby holes that you have to basically time yourself to get through so you don't end up losing too much health and dying. But that also brings us to the last part of this. I would like to say that the roguelike aspect of this, of having each run and having different items that you can experiment with, because you can work on different aspects of your character to see what you prefer, or try to experiment to see if you can make it through a run, is really fun. Each run is usually anywhere between half an hour and 50 minutes, I would like to say, because you start off on a very simple level, you get through it, and then you have X amount of stages you need to do before you get to the boss. Now, the only thing that's devastating about this game is that if you lose to a boss, you have to start the whole run over again. And on the later stages, that's super annoying, because if you're trying to learn the new boss patterns, or trying to learn the new attacks or gimmicks that it has, and you die, it's very frustrating. I won't lie, it's super frustrating, but since the gameplay is at least simple to really get back into, even if you lose, you don't feel super bad, and even if you lose a run, you still get permanent currency to upgrade your character, so you can continue going back and getting a lot better, and getting more used to different types of builds and things that you can do. Some of my favorite builds include, hey, if you run along the ground long enough, you get HP. If you use your boost, you actually get HP for every moment or every second that you're using your boost to get more HP. Using certain abilities like, oh, if you collect enough of these star fragments that are in the air while you're running and usually doing your regular level, they give you a combo meter, and the more that you get a certain amount in a row or a certain amount of them, you get HP or some sort of boost refund or something like that. And like I said, there's a lot of items in this game. Some are definitely more useful than others, and some of them are very situational. But it's good to experiment, and I think this game finds a good balance of, even though it's a very simplistic gameplay, it's very good. Now, I don't usually want to say this to scare people off, but to be fair, one of the reasons I actually like this game is because of another game of the list contender that we'll talk about later, but I'm just going to bring up now, Kirby Air Ride, because it's basically the concept of Kirby Air Ride. When you jump into the air and you get a perfect landing, you get bonus speed and extra points for that. And this is like the main flow of the game, just trying to perfectly time your running on the ground to being in the air to landing perfectly, so you can keeping up your momentum and speed, so you can get big jumps of air, get a lot of speed, and get to the end of the stage without taking any damage, and getting the most amount of stars so you can be able to spend it on items so you can beat the game. Like I said, I think if you were to sit down and play this game, you could beat it in a weekend. It would take probably 10 to 15 hours. The only reason I personally think that I ended up taking as long as I did is because, again, we had a few runs where we got to a boss that we had to learn the pattern of, and we only had a couple of health, and then when you lose those health, you have to start all over. But other than that, I think it's pretty good, and I did play it on, I think, the hardest difficulty, which might have been a bad choice for that final boss, because if you play this game, you'll know what I mean by that was probably a wrong choice for the final boss, because that final boss can go and screw itself on the hardest difficulty, because they really made it really obnoxious. But hey, either way, I think if you have the time to slow down, I think Haste is actually a pretty thick game that, again, even though it's one of those auto-advanced games where you're just kind of going forward and just trying to use your momentum and stuff, I think it has enough content to actually improve the overall gameplay of it to justify the playthrough of it. And it's definitely something that if you have the money to pay $20 to $25 to try it, definitely worth your time. But anyways, this was another one of these games of this year, and I think we should actually take a little bit of a slowdown here and try to change our pace for how we're going to go through the next little bit of the games of this year. Welcome to the afterlife. All right, so it's time to talk about the game of this year, Have a Nice Death. So I'm going to be 100% transparent when I talk about this game. Have a Nice Death and me have a very strange relationship with each other. Now, I'm not saying that it's one that is not built on some sort of love and care and respect, but also I will say the very foundation of this game was built off of me having curiosity of this game for a while, because it had been released, I believe, in 2022 or 2023, but it was only on Xbox as an exclusive. Now, recently it has been ported to Steam, and that was why I decided to try it, because one day I went up to the city to see my friends, and one of them was playing it on their Xbox, and I was like, wow, this game looks cool. Why haven't I played it before? Because I'm like, I recognize it, but I'm like, I don't think I've ever played it. And he's like, yeah, it's a cool game where you just play as a skeleton dude and you just kill all the people that work under you because they're doing too good of a job of killing people. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool concept. So then I came home after that city trip. I asked him what that was so I could type it into my Steam to see if it was available, and there we go. Roguelike that's also a 2D platformer. I'm like, what wouldn't I like about this? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the hardest roguelike that I think that I have gotten a chance to play. I would like to say the difficulty curve on Have a Nice Death doesn't really change super much in the way that it's going to always be hard. It's going to be more challenging than something like Hades, something more than Unholy, something more than West of Dead, which we already talked about. It has a very solid and very strong foundation of, it's one of those games that you learn to appreciate after dying about 10 to 15 times. This isn't a game that you're going to be able to, I don't know, be on your first first like 10 or 20 attempts, it's going to take you a while because there's a lot to adjust to with this game. First of all, you do not get really powerful really quickly in this game. It takes quite a few runs to really understand the gimmicks and the way that this game is built so you can become strong. For example, you have many different types of the main base weapon. For the one that you're seeing right now on the video that I decided to use was my favorite one, which is the strings scythe. So it's basically a scythe with a longer range, but it also has a lot of long wired attacks that can extend very far while keeping my main character safe. Now I like this one because fighting aerial enemies is a lot safer by throwing my actual attack up towards them, and then I follow afterwards so I don't accidentally get hit by contact damage. And also it has a lot more AoE attacks that allow me to keep my character a lot safer. Now, this game genuinely does have very hard, like, not beginner friendly stuff. Like, you will basically die to most enemies in this game within 5 or 6 hits because the amount of HP you have, basically starting the game, is basically negligent because you can easily take damage just by not paying attention once or twice and end up dead because it's very easy to lose HP in this game. You are very incentivized to dodge or to stun lock or to kill enemies as fast as you can so you do not get destroyed. Because as soon as the enemy hits you or as soon as an attack comes out, you will get hit and you will take a really staggering amount of damage and will probably get comboed because there's not very long invincibility in this game. So if you take too many hits all at once, you're probably going to come from full health down to half health or almost a quarter of your health and be like, I don't know if I'm beating this run. Now, all that saying, I did like the challenge, and I have beaten the game, like gotten to an ending at least twice, maybe 3 times. But like I said, each of these runs are very, very difficult and very dependent on you knowing all the enemy patterns, so you have a really comfortable time getting through each zone without having a lot of downtime where you're losing a lot of health and then having to play safe. I think this game really does reward you just having a lot of knowledge of each run and trying to learn new things, but it does throw a lot at you for a game that is a roguelike that other roguelikes won't do. Like most roguelikes like, Hades, Unholy, and even West of Dead that we've talked about probably, basically allow you to basically pick a power-up, then kind of just build around the power-ups that you get, and then that's how you get powerful, right? And then you just kind of base your run around the power-ups you get. But in this game, there's a lot of things to consider. You have your basic weapon. You have 2 different sub-weapons that either can be magic or physical-based. Physical-based are made off of timers, while magic is made off of your green gauge underneath, which makes you use your magic gauge. Now, some magic uses all of your magic. Some magic uses a certain set amount. But either way, that's another resource you have to manage. And then your health. And then there is these little extra health nodes that you can pick up to heal at any time called Azanesia, I'm pretty sure, which basically are these little nodes above your health that if you have them, if they're blue, it will give back your temporary health, that is the lightly grayed out stuff, or if you have the golden one, it will give you back all of your health regardless if it's lightly grayed out or not. And it's not going to give you a full heal, it's like gives you like maybe 35% or 40%, but all of these resources you have to keep in mind while playing this game, while learning new enemy patterns and getting used to the 2D side-scrolling with using your scythe movement that has different aerial movement, with grounded movement, you have charge attacks, you have specials, and you have all these. What I'm saying is that this game is very overwhelming, but it's very rewarding once you start getting used to like the gameplay. I think the average run of this game ends up being around, I would like to say 30 to 45 minutes. Usually I say 30 to 45 because you're gonna either die by the time you're getting to the 30-minute point because the later stages in the game are very difficult and really do require you either to fight the enemy and kill it in like within a couple of hits or literally just running past, because killing enemies sometimes drops random items that help you, but it's very, very, very dangerous to fight random enemies because you can take a lot of damage really quickly if you let them hit you. And you do have a dodge button, but it doesn't save you from everything that would come towards you, because your dodge only gives you so many frames of invincibility, and it's easier to get caught off with a lingering hitbox in this game than not. But, speaking of all that, other gameplay stuff that, that's about the genre, Powering up is pretty interesting because after you die, you get a set amount of gold to basically unlock different types of weapons or different types of spells or different types of other things that you can boost your stuff. There's no way to permanently increase your stats as much. There are ways to do it, but it's not as consistent like in other games. Like Hades, you can definitely see in either the first game, the second game, such as Unholy and West of Dead, where you can definitely get certain things that permanently really help you, and then you can consistently really just do runs and just kind of just work on whatever sort of builds that you get and just try to make the best of them. But in this game particularly, it takes a little while to be able to start unlocking a lot of stuff. I don't think you unlock most of the actual upgrade stuff until at least I think your 7th or 8th run. So that's saying something, considering that you're going to be struggling the first couple of runs just trying to beat the first boss. That is actually pretty simple, but also you don't have as much tools and as much power to kind of get through the regular stuff, because you kind of feel obligated to search around and look for stuff in the stages to help you out, but sometimes you just don't get anything, and the only thing you get is a lump on the head, which puts you at a severe disadvantage. Which again, I think the best way to think of Have a Nice Death is literally pick your battles wisely, because there's going to be a lot of times you're fighting bosses in this game that you have to learn patterns for, and you will die to a lot. There are a lot of times that you will fight a group of enemies that is really annoying to deal with because their attack patterns really complement each other when they spawn, or they're just annoying to deal with because they'll have a lot more HP than your basic attack. One of the things I think that's really crazy about this game is that your basic attack, along with your spells and other damage, won't probably one-shot anything unless it's a really weak flying enemy. But most ground-based enemies will have enough health to survive 2 volleys of attacks. So it's very much a thing you have to balance a lot of your powers and be very mindful and careful while being on the offensive. You're probably seeing me show off one of the bosses that I've really struggled with for a long time and me beat really soundly in this video. But there's still a new ending boss that I haven't beaten in the game once I beaten it after my 15th run. And it's still difficult, and I still haven't beat it, but I will probably come back and play this game and, if I have the weird urge or itch to have a really challenging run on it. But it's definitely not something you can just pick up and play and think you're going to be a master at it like you can with Hades 1, 2, again, Unholy, West of Dead, and a lot of other roguelike games. Because this run really asks you to deal with the fact that a lot of things are out to kill you, and they aren't going to really hold back. The difficulty in this game is a very it's super high, but then once you hit the fact that you're used to the super high ceiling, then it just feels normal until there's usually the 1 or 2 bosses that you're not used to fighting, until you fight them enough to be okay, I know what I need to look out for, and then just beat them off of that. But hey, like I said, this is one of the games of this year for this year, and even though me and Death have a very strained relationship, one day when I'm put to rest, I know that he'll do it right by me, it'll be peaceful, hopefully, and we won't have anything to complain about, because regardless of anything, Have a Nice Death was a perfect game to end off this lineup of games for this year. But yeah, let's keep going for these games of this year. Okay, so we got through 5 games so far, so how long is the video so far? 50 minutes? Okay, bro. We can't be doing this because, ladies and gentlemen, I have at least another 8 games I want to talk about for 10 minutes or 7 minutes, and then I still have a bunch of other games that I have on this list. So, for the first time in the games of this year history, we are going to do what I call the mini run show, where I'm going to basically run through a good chunk of these games that I can really break down into 3 minutes each, into a little spiel so you guys can enjoy them, have a really rough estimate or overview of everything that these games are about, and basically tell you why I like them, if you should buy them and how much they cost and where you can play them on platform. But I'll be 100% transparent with you. There is a lot of games that I played this year, and right now we're going to speed through at least another, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them. So hold on tight as we now go through the mini gauntlet of games of this year, starting with... Alright, ladies and gentlemen, for the first one of our basically mini gauntlet of all the games that I played this year for the games of this year. First, we're going to be talking about Leap Year. Now, Leap Year is basically a platformer puzzle game that you try to get all 29 of the sacred days of the leap year, and then even find some extra stuff because there's a legendary chase to find down all these numbers. Now, again, this game is very simplified, and I'm basically describing the whole game. You're only probably going to see 3 minutes out of the whole, hour and a half that I played at this game. This game is about roughly 2 hours long. If you wanted to beat it in one sitting, you could. Definitely, I beat it back in, the middle of May, and now this is my second time touching it since playing it in May. And even still, I didn't beat it in, under an hour because it was been a long time since I played it and beat it. But this game definitely has a learning curve of learning how to use the mechanics, learn different mechanics, and basically get around and try to solve the puzzles and try to get the ultimate ending of this game where you get all legendary 29 days of the month, which is why it's called Leap Year. And that's basically the gist of this game. I think this game is pretty good for the price. It's under $10. And if you wanted to just have a light afternoon game to play, or maybe it might take you a little bit longer depending on how you are on platformers, or having critical thinking skills to figure out the puzzles, because this game definitely has a learning curve up to the mid game, and then it really throws everything at you to see if you can figure it out to beat it in a reasonable time. I could beat the game, so I believe in you guys to beat the game too. It's not that very difficult. It's more just that once you get into the flow state of how the game wants you to think and how you think abstractly to get everything done, then Leap Year is a wonderful platforming game that doesn't take too long to beat. Good speedrunning game, and if you wanted to get all of the achievements, it's just learning how to play the game better, or remembering how to get all of the numbers on the calendar to get all 29 days to win the game. And yeah, that's basically it for Leap Year, so let's go ahead and move on to the next little thing in our mini gauntlet. Let's go! Alright, and for the next game of this year, game that's going to be on our mini gauntlet, it's Click and Conquer. Click and Conquer? Click and Conquer is bad for a day. Anyways, Click and Conquer is a very fun game that is basically like playing reverse Minesweeper. So basically, the whole point of this game is to drop bombs on the enemy and to get them to get money to level up and get better stats for clicking and trying to reveal the enemies and destroy them all. The more that you click, the more that you find enemies that you reveal and they blow up. And basically the whole game is going through a series of all of these different missions, getting your bombs increased so you can have better area of effect to try to find the hidden soldiers or other territory members that you gotta blow up. And crazy that it sounds a little bit too realistic, but yeah, that's basically it. It's basically like Battleship, where you're trying to get all of the pieces out, or trying to knock out as many pieces as you can in a run to get money, to get currency, to get upgrades, to keep continuously doing this loop. This is just like the previous game that we talked about, where you can basically beat it in a day. I think it takes about 3 hours to beat the game. I think it took an hour and a half on my account, but if you're just going at a relaxed pace or wanting to just do this for like a one-off play session thing or with friends, it's really fun. There's no multiplayer, but if you have a group of friends and you're streaming it on Discord, you can all take turns picking where you want to throw bombs and try to figure out where all of the units are. And basically you level up by getting a lot of currency until you eventually reach the last stage where you blow up everything. But this is Click and Conquer, you know. This is another game that I played on this list for this year. And let's go ahead to our another candidate for Game of the Year. And next up for our games of this year, we have Rabbit and Steel. Now imagine me restarting a whole section of this because I said bunny instead of rabbit and making myself look dumb. Anyways, Rabbit and Steel is a game where you play as a rabbit and use steel to get through all of these very prejudiced beings that don't like rabbits. So basically this game is a Toho/Gradius game, also mixed in with a RPG/MMO game. Literally the name of the game is dodge bullets, do damage, and win the day. There's quite a few levels in this game. I could only ever beat levels 1, 2, and 3, but I put at least 10 hours into the game and enjoyed it quite a fair amount. This game, Rabbit and Steel, also has multiplayer, so if you have either a PS5 or 4 or even the Steam account, you can ask 4 of your friends to go in and play this game and start dodging and doing, you know, fun stuff all together as a group. I think this game is very good because every role has a big, you know, weight behind how you play. Depending on what type of class you like, will really determine how you play, whether you're more aggressive, whether you're more passive, whether you can do more range attacks or close range attacks to try to defeat the bosses that have hundreds upon hundreds of HP and dodge their attacks to make it through to the end. Again, this game also has a level up system and equipment system that allows you to alter your runs and how you craft your character to make them the strongest that they can be. Now for me personally, I don't play a lot of these games, but I think I'm pretty okay at them, but I definitely could dedicate more time to them to learn patterns and to get better as a player in these games. But I do end up being quite reckless and not paying attention to movements and patterns, and I end up dying a lot. But this game, I think, is very good for the amount of price that it is. I think it's still under $20 if you get it on Steam or PlayStation, and it's very fun. And I think if you have a group of people who like playing Toho games, this is definitely a game that you should play with your friends who also like it and try to see how far you can go. Because again, the world of Rabbit and Steel is filled with many dangers, but also many wonderful possibilities to conquer it with friends. But this is why it's one of the games of the year, and let's head on to the next wonderful game of the year for this mini gauntlet. Next on this game of the year's list, Orb's Odyssey, a video game that is sure a video game that I cannot explain in more than maybe 2 minutes. It is a collectathon platformer that has a very weird character where it got orbs. The main character trying to escape from his boss's locked room, and for some reason he has to go through these portals and collect really cool gears to build a powerful arm to escape and, you know, live his life. But what sort of hijinks are in this game? Well, there's a bunch of funny stuff, there's a bunch of cool stuff, there's a bunch of funny NPCs talking about random stuff, and you're just trying to collect 20 of these gears, thingamajiggers, to get out. But to really break down this game, it's everything that you would expect from a game that is not what you would see. Doing your objectives are kind of like random 5 objectives for each area, and there's only 4 areas in the game. You can beat it in less than 5 hours if you know what you're doing or what you're looking for. But sometimes some of the answers to the things that you need in this game are just things that you will just randomly do, and then it's gonna work out. Or, something very strange and unsettling is happening here, and you're gonna lose your nerve. But I think the biggest thing about this game, as somebody who's trying to recommend it to you, the less information you know about this game, the more fun it is. So that's why I'm showing you probably a lot of clips out of context, but also why this game is very interesting and intrinsically funny as a concept. This is only on Steam, I believe, but hey, it's definitely worth the buy if you get it for anything of $10 or lower dollars. I know it's a very short platforming game, but if you're playing it for the first time and being surprised by all the funny and cool things that you gotta look for to beat the game, it's actually a pretty decent time. And that's why it's one of the games of this year. So let's move on to the next one. So have you ever played Town of Salem and really said, man, I hate my friends, so I don't want to play that game anymore? Well, do I have good news for you, because Demon Bluff is a single player version of that game where you can hate yourself for not choosing the right options. So Demon Bluff is a game that is basically like Town of Salem. You have a few different bad apples who are ruining the bunch of these people who live in this town, and you gotta find who's the deceitful people who are controlling or trying to kill all the other people in this village. You have a set amount of moves or turns to be able to find out who the killer is, depending on the different types of people who are corrupting the town. Whether it's a poisoner that makes people corrupted and say lies, whether it's people disguising themselves as other people, whether it's literal monsters waiting about a couple of turns then to take out people before you can even reveal who they are. There's a lot of different ways that this game gets randomly generated, and it's very fun. It's very hard. It gets harder the more it adds, and you get to learn about different types of characters and how they interact, how they can kind of stack and sometimes end up being not the most suspicious person, but end up making somebody else more suspicious in turn, and you turn your knife on the wrong person. But I think it's very fun because, again, there's a lot of things, since this is a single player game, that you can do to interact with the different NPCs and find different ways to find answers to solutions that are very, you know, seem like they're impossible to do, but then by process of elimination, you can kind of guess and get lucky and save the town from these bad fake actors. And luckily about this game too, it's a free demo. Demon Bluff is a free demo on Steam. So if you want to just go ahead and play it for free right now, this instant, and try it for yourself and not have to even worry about having a group of friends to play a Town of Salem-like game where you're trying to find out who the killers are, this is probably the best thing for you to do. It is also fun in a group to like have a group of people also just play on the same board and talk about, like, you know, who do we think the killer is, and then we pick off of our voting system. Well, one person controls like what we vote for, so that's also funny too. But I think Demon Bluff has a very bright future ahead of it whenever it gets a full release. I hope that it does in the next year, because I do think that is a wonderful game for somebody who likes to play games that they use their mind for, but not have to worry about the whole multiplayer Among Us version of it, where people are just screaming at the top of their lungs trying to pretend like, you know, they're not bad people, and then making you feel bad for it. So I think Demon Bluff is very good, and that is why it's one of these games of the year. But let's go back to the gauntlet of other games that we have to talk about this year. Have you ever just wanted to hold down on your keyboard? You know, did you ever just want to hold the S key and just play a game and just lose yourself in a game for like 5 hours? Because Mining Mechs is one of those games that I played in the past 3 weeks that I decided to just randomly download because I'm like, oh, this looks cool. And it's just one of those simulators where you upgrade a mech, and basically the main premise is that you're digging to the center of the earth. There's a lot of lore and cool stuff that happens, but you're mostly just digging around for good materials, ores, and upgrading your mech, so you get to finally see the cool stuff that happens at the end of the game. Now, right now, I'm not showing you all of the game. I'm showing you probably most of the mid-game of this game. And I think Mining Mechs is a $10 or below game. I'm pretty sure, because I bought it on sale. I don't think it's any more than $15 at least, and it's on Steam. And all you're doing is just digging down, finding good loot, then bringing it back up, selling it, and repeating the process until either you beat it in 5 hours, or as long as it takes you to basically make the perfect mech for you so you can get done the game. Now me, I got done this game in like 6 hours because I literally said one afternoon, I said, screw it, I don't want to play anything that I currently own, so let me just find a random Steam game and play it. And this was very relaxing. The first couple of hours were really good. The middle of the hours of the game were kind of made me feel like maybe I should stop playing. But I was like, but I'm so close to the bottom, bro, so you gotta keep digging. What if you're about to hit diamonds and I just stop before diamonds, bro? That's how I felt. It's just like Minecraft, but it's in a 2D sprite-based game, and you're just kind of just holding down on the S key and just being like, yep, I hope I find really good stuff, and try to optimize your time to try to speedrun to beat it. And like I said, when I find out the like actual story and cool stuff that happens as you keep getting down 100 meters after 100 meters and after 100 meters, there's kind of a cool story and funny story that concludes near the end. So I won't spoil that for you, but if you really want to play this game because it's a game that you can just want to play for an afternoon or over the period of a couple nights and just go and play for a couple of hours on end until you beat it, Mining Mechs is here for you. And it is the reason why it's on the games of this games of this year list. Holy, I just kind of lost my mind. Because sometimes the drill that pierces the heavens is more important than worrying about all the stress and, you know, anxiety that we feel on a regular basis. But let us go on back to the gauntlet and see what's next on the list. So, I've heard from you that you like numbers. Do you like games about making big numbers by making combinations of things and hitting big numbers? Because if so, Loot Plots is the game for you. I had 100% in on Steam this game, which I'm showing up on the screen right now, Loot Plots. Now Loot Plots is a game that, thanks to my favorite Canadian YouTuber, Northern Lion, shoutouts, has put on his videos earlier in the summer. I said, wow, this game looks like something I can spend a lot of my time on. And then I proceeded to basically 100% it and get all the achievements, and now I'm like, damn, I didn't realize I was gonna like this game so much to literally do a 100% achievement of something. Like I said, this year I only achieved 2 of those games. 2 of the games that I've talked about, which is None Holy, and also Loot Plots, are the only 2 games that I actually 100%ed on Steam this year, and for good reasons, because this game is one of those games where the more you play it, the more you understand why some games like this exist, because these are kind of like puzzle games that are also roguelike with items that just have cool synergies, and then you can kind of make whatever sort of synergies works for the situation. And each of the modes in this game ask you to basically use the plots, because the whole thing is that you get little plots where you can place down your items, and then figure out how the item works in stacks with different other items to get big combos and try to win runs. Now, sometimes you can get overzealous and do something wrong, and then you can lose your run, because I've done this, and even in this video that you're not probably going to see, I lost the run that I recorded for this because I got a little bit too cocky with the type of build I was making, and I completely ruined it. But I think that's the fun about this game, is that there's so much experimentation and ways to have to view, like, working around the different types of restrictions that the game gives you to try all the modes and beat them. And honestly, by getting and beating all of the modes and then getting that 100% achievement, it really made me appreciate the game, because of the fact that it did have to make me think of the outside of the box most of the time. Which is funny, because each plot is basically me thinking outside of the box, because each plot is a thing that you sit a thing in. Anyways, genuinely, if you're looking at the gameplay and it looks confusing, this game is about, I think, $15 on Steam, or if I need to correct myself, it's being shown up on the screen. But I think it's a fun time if you like games where you just learn about synergies and mechanics and allow yourself to evolve from that. Because like I said, I wouldn't have 100% achieved this game if I didn't really like it. So that's why it's one of the games of this year. And let's move on to the last of this gauntlet, and then we'll get back to our regular presentation. And finally, for the last of this Game of the Year gauntlet, we have Mithril Death. Now, this is a game that wasn't technically on my radar, but I think I found it one time when I was looking through Steam sales during the first half of the year. And it kind of caught my eye, because when I looked at the trailer, I was like, wow, this game has some pretty banger music. Like, even though I think right now you're going to be listening to a little bit of it as I'm talking and explaining this game. But, like, this is a top-down beat-em-up game where you basically get different types of ranged weapons and physical weapons, and you go through these dungeons like a regular roguelike and just kill enemies as you go into different rooms, trying to survive and not trying to take any hits as you're trying to make it through and beat, I think, 5 floors? Yeah, 5 floors of increasingly harder dungeons. Now, this is one of these games where, like I was discussing with Have a Nice Death, this game gets a lot easier once you start getting some upgrades, but it does take you a little while to start actually leveling up, because you need to get very good runs and kill a lot of enemies and not trying to die to get very far. But, like, this game and its music and its, like, aesthetic, it's pretty good. Genuinely, the only reason I'm not talking about this game as long as I would for some of the other games is because, genuinely to me, I didn't play enough of it to really say anything super substantial. Like, I've beaten the game like 2 or 3 times, and there's a story, but I don't think I ended up getting like the full and super true ending story result. Because, again, these games usually require you to play at least 20 hours to like see a true ending. For the most part. So, me personally, I was more just excited to talk about this game because the music is really good, the atmosphere is pretty good. I do think it's very interesting for this game to be like a game maker type game using action game elements, because as you're seeing probably on, the video, I'm using a whole bunch of different weapons, and each weapon has a different property and a different way that it works, which is kind of cool, because as a game that looks like this, you wouldn't expect them to have a lot of care or, interest in making every weapon feel unique. But even if it's in the same weapon class, it can sometimes act differently, which is kind of sick. And like I said, the music itself also was a real bop, because again, I think this is based off of a VTuber that exists or doesn't exist. And if it does, I'm putting it on screen. Bam, there you go. And, genuinely speaking, I think that this game is pretty fire, and I would go back and play some more of it when I get the chance. because, like I said, it's just the only thing that's the downside about all of these games that I'm putting on here that I wish to put higher, is that you need to commit at least 30 hours to each of them, if not more, to really get a full spectrum of what they got going on. And genuinely, for this game, I had a really fun time. It was a little bit frustrating sometimes having certain weapons, because certain weapons work a lot better than other ones in this game, considering that you can't just react over everything because of the dodge in this game not being the greatest. But hey, I still think that the type of game that it's trying to be is pretty good, considering I think it's just a fan game for a VTuber. And honestly, like I said, I played Hollow Cure, that was pretty good, and this is pretty good as well. So this is going to be the end of the small mini gauntlet before we get back to the rest of the main events. But thank you all for listening, and let us go ahead and get back to our next game of this year. So, have you ever liked Slay the Spire? You know, that one really popular indie game that came out like back in 2013, where you get cards, you get powerful, you get synergies, and you try to beat like 4 stages worth of enemies that all want you to die in very specific ways. But did you ever want that game in a way where you're playing with dice instead, like D&D, and as a cute frog? Because if you're looking for that, Die in a Dungeon is the game for you. Now, Die in a Dungeon is a game that is basically like Slay the Spire, just it has a different vision. Instead of using cards, it's using dice. Now, like I said, Die in a Dungeon is a game that I picked up because I saw it and it was like, hey, this is Slay the Spire adjacent. And at the time of me playing this game, I was also just finishing up playing Loot Plot, which I was talking about before in the Game of the Year. And I was like, oh, this game looks pretty interesting. It seems like it's the same concept of Slay the Spire, but with dice and with cute frog, and basically you're rolling for initiative or your attack power with these dice, and then trying to do your best to get as far as you can. Now, full disclaimer before we continue, I've played this game for almost 20 hours, and I still haven't beaten the 3rd area of the game. Or was it the 2nd area? Either way, I have a very difficult time getting through the game because these bosses in this game are quite crazy. The enemies in this game are quite challenging, even if you're somebody coming from Slay the Spire. I don't know if it's because I'm just bad at math, which probably it is, because, you know, sometimes I just don't calculate very well. This is why we're also not talking about Slay the Spire, even though I did play it a little bit this year. I'm really bad at it, okay? I'm really bad at these types of games, but I think this game is fun, so this is why this one is on the list. And again, I do like Slay the Spire too, but I just didn't play as much of it as I did this game. So the whole, again, point of this game is that you have a board that you get to put your dice in. Each dice has a different type of property or value. I think there's like 8 or 9 different types of variety of dice, and they all do different things. You have your standard attack dice that are a certain color. I believe it's red/orange. And depending on what the size is, or what type of dice it is, you can get a 1 to 4, a regular D6, a D8, and I think there is another size later that you can get, but I haven't gotten that far because I usually end up dying before I actually get to see any of the other content. But again, depending on what you're using for dice, whether it's an attack, a defense, a healing, or one of the cool boost dice, which gives you a boost for how many points, or for X amount of points, and also makes it so X amount of squares away you get that boost, allow you to kind of play this game in a really cool and unique style. So most of the time that you're going to be playing this game, you're going to try to be rolling dice and seeing what you can get. The main character that I play is one that you can actually re-roll or take other things out of your pocket to try to get better pulls for your numbers. Because like I said, each dice has a certain amount of value, and you can check that in your inventory at any time. Because sometimes you get dice that have 0, so when you roll them, sometimes you just get really bad luck. Or you can get a minimum of 1, 2, 3. Some dice have really cool properties like Heavy, where once you put a dice on the board, it will give you whatever value it is, and then it will keep going down in value until it goes to 0, and then it will disappear off the board. There's energy that gives you like little extra actions to get more dice or extra things. Those are really good. There's glass dice that will give you a certain property but can only be used once for battle. So let's say you had a really strong attack glass dice. Maybe it's not good to use it this turn because you got a low number on it and you know you can get a higher number on it. So you save it for another turn. There's healing dice that usually only give you maybe 1 or 2 healing, but mixed along with the boost dice, you can actually boost the amount of numbers that you're getting for your heal by putting one of your healing on the boost number dice, and then that will help you offset how much damage you've taken. And also you can do that for defense dice, so you can have a lot of overshield so you don't take any damage in general. Then there's a bunch of AoE dice that allow you to do AoE attacks or certain other types of properties to enemies like poison and other status effects, which makes this game very cool because, genuinely speaking, I think that a lot of the things about Dicey Dungeon that kept making me go back is that it's very simplistic actually, but it's more about trying to find the right balance of what type of dice that you would like to roll every single turn to keep you from either taking way too much damage or doing enough damage to kill enemies that might do way too much damage or put you in the back foot too much. And like I said, this is very much inspired by Slay the Spire, and I will say this, the bosses in this game are very, very tough. Like, I've beaten like 4 out of the couple of bosses I've seen, and I've only made it to the 3rd area once, and I immediately died. Because getting to the 3rd area, there's enemies that are so difficult that you gotta kind of restructure your brain a lot to just try to deal with them. Like, one thing I really think I enjoyed about playing this game, even though I don't think I'll ever win a run, is that once you get used to certain enemy types or different ways that they alter the board space, because that's a very interesting thing about this game, is that enemies not only just attack you directly, sometimes they'll alter the board space or change things about the board, so you have to think on the fly of how to be able to damage them while also dealing with the fact that they may limit your options, whether it's putting extra blocks there, whether you need to connect a chain of dice so you can actually take reduced damage, whether or not you put a dice that on a space that might give you negative properties and you're kind of forced to because there's not enough space. A lot of this game is pretty cool because, again, there's so many different factors to like keep in mind when you're playing and when you're first seeing certain types of enemy types that are like, it's very overwhelming in a good way, and I really do like this game, and I don't think I've heard many people talk about Dice in a Dungeon, and I think it's a very good substitute or, you know, more modern take on Slay the Spire that I actually quite enjoy. So I'm glad that I was able to talk about this game because, like I said, I haven't beaten the game because, like I said, you're probably seeing a little clip of one of the bosses I'm fighting right now. And believe you and me, the bosses only get more and more difficult and have way and way more like strong abilities. Like, some of the bosses in this game, I feel like I am never going to be equipped to beat. But I do like playing the game and getting big dice and getting a really cool synergy and then just kind of rolling with it. And all the passive items and other things that you get. I didn't even really mention the shops, which allow you to like add extra numbers to your dice or take away extra numbers from your dice, so you can get a specific type of roll with a certain dice and you can get a certain number, and that's also really cool. Like I said, there's so many things to this game that I feel like if you like Slay the Spire, you should try this game at least for like a couple runs and see if you would like it, because there is an endless mode, and I've never beaten the regular campaign. But this is a game that I see myself coming back to every so often just to do a few runs, because it is still addicting to try to see if you can't get the run where you got the perfect amount of dice, the perfect amount of offense and defense, and trying to make your way through a very perilous world of dice, because you are going to die in the dungeon very often and very frequently. But yeah, that's why it is one of my games of this year. And you know, even though I croaked on the pressure, there are some games that I don't croak on the pressure, and that's what we'll be talking about next in the games of this year. Okay, guys, I have a confession to make. And I don't make this confession easily or lightly, because, genuinely speaking, it was a small arc, It was a small arc that only lasted like a day. But ladies and gentlemen, I have to admit something. This year I played League of Legends. Now that I scared all of you, like half to death by me saying that one sentence, and I didn't even let it sink in, I played it for one game and then I uninstalled the game. So first of all, I think League of Legends as a game, this is just a mini aside before we get into the actual thing we're going to talk about. League of Legends is definitely a game that if you played early on in your life, you would be radically changed for the rest of your life. Luckily for me, since I'm almost getting closer to my 30s, I have no affinity for the game, no want to play the game, and I'm okay with that. But what I didn't expect was 2XKO to be released, and me being like, you know what, maybe League of Legends isn't that bad. Maybe the whole series isn't that bad, and I'm just giving it a bad rap. Because, unironically, I really enjoy 2XKO. I do think it's a game that I only gave like a month and a half of my time to try to play, and try to play with others, because I have some friends, and
I wonder if this is going to hit.
That also liked the game, and then they tried to get me into it, and I was like, you know what, sure. I was kind of disappointed after, the game that's coming up next in the list that I played. But, since I was disappointed with that, I was like, you know what? Let's give this game a shot. It's free to play. The only thing you got to buy into is all the expensive and really predatory marketing for, like, buying skins and stuff. But, hey, I don't care about that. I just want to play the game and have a little bit of fun. So, 2XKO is basically Riot Games' new answer to having another format for people to play their games with their characters. And it's a pretty interesting 2v2 game. Now, like I said, 2v2 games have always been interesting because usually my first exposure to playing a 2v2 game is Blaze Blue Cross Tag. And now a lot of you are groaning and being like, that's the game that got you into fighting games, and I'm like, surprisingly, when you have IPs that you like in one game, that's usually how that works. And then Melty Blood type Lumina happened, and then with the whole thing, that was my 4-year darling, probably going to still be my darling because Melty Blood type Lumina. But anyways, 2XKO, pretty cool. You get to play as lead characters in this fighting game. It's a 2v2 fighting game that has the cool system of one person can take on one character, and if you have a friend, you can play as they can play as another character. You guys can switch in and switch out, do cool tag combos, assist, and it's pretty fun. I mean, it's very simplistic, like super simplistic. Like some of the characters have like strings that literally do like 50% of your HP just by pressing the regular button and then into a special. And like, listen, I know that most of y'all don't like that. Most fighting games are very simplistic and you get rewarded for doing like one combo. But it's also about footsies, trying to open up your opponents, trying to fake them out, trying to anti-air them, trying to get them into combos or situations that are bad, and then just trying to, capitalize off of that. And I think this game does a pretty good job of that. Like I said, I'm not very good at the game because I only put, I think maybe a month's worth of time into it, and then I realized, oh yeah, I still got a game of the year to kind of do, so I can't dedicate all my time to this, but it was fun to play with my friends for like a month and like be actually playing something that I knew that I was going to at least enjoy a lot more than I thought. Considering, like I said, I don't play many of the Riot games, and I have not played League of Legends since I told you at the beginning I played it for one game and then I dipped. I'm like, genuinely, 2XKO was a very fun game to just kind of like play and experience. Because even though I was only there
you should be saying
for the open beta and then the full release,
stopped my combo
and then played a little bit after that, and then I kind of stopped. Because like I said, I didn't really have much commitment to this game because I was going to play other games this year as well. The long and the short of it is that I had a very fun experience with it. Do I think that it can overtake a lot of the other types of fighting games that are like super well polished and stuff? Probably not, but I do think that it's fun to watch. And I do like the aspect of the game that it's like, oh, you could literally make a tournament where two people are fighting two other people in a tournament, and since they know their character very well, they just have to rely on their other teammate to kind of get through. And I think that's stuff that I do want to see more in fighting games, because like Dragon Ball FighterZ had a patch where you could, or actually just a mode in general, where if you had a group of friends and you wanted to do 3v3s, you could literally all play your main character and then you would just tag in the 3v3 fighter, and that's cool. but it's a little bit more simplified into XKO, where it's just one extra person, so you just tag team. And also, I will say that the online experience was pretty good, and there was only a few top problems I think I had while playing online.
That was crazy.
Not a whole lot, but a few. And I genuinely think that the fact that you can play, like, if you wanted to go online and just play casual matches, you could go with another friend and do a 2v1 where somebody gets to control two of their characters, and then us as a duo get to fight still by being one person playing one character and the other person playing another character. And that stuff was fun to me. And in my brain, I'm just like, yeah, I wish I got to play more of it, but unironically, I'm like, it was one of those things where I said, I know I'm not going to get into this more than multi-blood type Lumina, and I'm okay with that, because listen, like I said before, my darling multi-blood type Lumina will always stay my first fighting game love, because it was the first one that I knew that was made for me and had a character made for me. Now you may be wondering, who did I play in this game? I played Yasuo, and who was the other one? I kind of mixed between Temu and Ari. Yes, those were like my three characters that I kind of rotated. And yeah, that was the fun that I had, because cool guy with samurai sword, even though I wasn't good at his entire combos, but I liked his one air combo where he lifted everybody up into the air and followed them down, and then he said, I warned you, you know, and I had a lot of fun with that.
Why did my guy go in like that?
Yeah, overall, I think 2XKO is a pretty cool game, and again, it's free to play, so like, the only thing that you just gotta deal with is that you gotta get Riot Launcher, and that's about it. But again, since it's a free-to-play game, anybody can get into it. Anybody can try it out. Anybody can get at least a little bit invested in it. But I don't think I would have gotten as invested as I would for a full-priced fighting game that really piqued my interest. Which is really sad, because I think after I tried a lot of fighting games over the past couple of years, I just realized that the ones that I'm always going to be the most interested in have already had their time in the sun, so I just gotta hope that at some point, eventually, in the near future, I get to find a chance to do that again. But yeah, 2XKO is one of the games of this year that I had definitely had a chance to play, and you know, regardless of anything, it was fun for the short, limited time I played. Will it have a long staying power into the future? Only the future can tell. I know at the Game of the Year award, they showed another Arcane character, and they're going to probably push a lot of Arcane characters, because everybody recognizes them from the hit Netflix series Arcane. So, hey man, whatever gets in their bag, I guess. But after all, let's go ahead and now talk about another fighting game that I should have been really happy to play, but was a little bit questionable. But let's go ahead and on to our next thing for the games of this year.
I thought I didn't get that combo, but it's like, no, if you hit the rock, it actually gets...
You know, it's kind of disappointing to play a video game that you thought you were really going to like, which I thought I really was going to like, and would put me on to my next fighting game era. But to be so disappointed in the end result that I'm like, I shouldn't have been surprised, but it makes me still upset in some ways and fashions, because you really wanted to enjoy it, because you may not have enjoyed the series this year, and you binge watched it, and you said, oh, I understand why Hunter X Hunter is pretty cool. So then I said, I'm going to buy Hunter X Hunter Nen Impact, and it's going to be just as cool. Unfortunately, Nen Impact had a super poor launch, and I bought it for full price. And do I have buyer's remorse? In a way, yes, but the game is probably good and fixed up now that it's been several months after the fact. But I haven't gone back to it since, because Nen Impact is one of those fighting games where it definitely is built to scale and built to be as kind of intense as the actual anime when it comes to the scaling of their characters. Quite legitimately, I think one of the strengths of Nen Impact is that this is the first time that I played a 3v3 fighter, and I kind of started to understand and get like how a 3v3 fighter could be fun. But also, it's the most painfulest thing in the world. Like, I'll be so for real. Right now, you're just probably seeing me playing and training and trying to learn, like, Leorio combos, because that's the only footage of this game I have. And anytime I tried to play online, it was kind of a horrible mess when the game launched. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of took me away from the experience and made me want to go back to play Melty Blood type Lumina. But from what I experienced from the demo and then what I did during the actual launch of the game and tried to enjoy of the game, I still think this game had a lot of potential to be something better. But I definitely see why a lot of people didn't buy in or weren't interested in the game. Because like I said, the launch was very rough. The characters, apparently, for certain people, they didn't like how the character models look. But I'm like, honestly, considering that these characters were only 2D animated before, and now they have a stylized 3D look, it doesn't look super horrible. But hey, like I said, I have no particular eye for things that look good or bad. I just think, does it fit the aesthetic of the thing that I am playing, and does it function well? Now, like I will say, there is a lot of cool stuff in this game that I personally think of. Like, every character has a unique gimmick. That I'm already proud of that this game has, because each character does feel like you're playing a completely different character. It's not like, oh, we're playing all the same characters, just different moves and animations. No, each character has their own weaknesses and strengths against certain other characters, and some of them are just busted. You know, and that's okay, because it's the type of game that I felt like it was going to be polarizing. As soon as I got to play like the open demo to try to play the game and see how it felt, there was no training mode in the demo either, so I kind of just played and tried to figure out stuff as I go. And like I said, I did enjoy the game, and I did play it with Mr. Shaka's game for a little while, like offline, and us just playing around and goofing around with the characters. And I said, you know, this game is pretty interesting and fun, but I do think that the meta for anybody who plays this high tier or high level, like, okay, just for example, Evo this year, the game was shown off because, you know, even though not a lot of people bought it, the people who did buy it, bought it and played it, and then it was shown on the big stage. One thing I think I hate about fighting games, especially ones that have multiple characters being used, like a 3v3, 4v4, 2v2 format, there's definitely characters that are going to be picked more than others because they are very busted and very broken. And when Yuzan is on every single team because he's the most broken character with super armor and literally just ignores all the things, you know, it's pretty hard to justify wanting to play or try to learn how to play this game when there's simply a meta that is way too strong. And it's fair because that character is super OD and strong in that game. But it really sucks because now I don't want to play your fighting game because one thing kind of bogs down the whole thing. And there's a lot of characters in this game that are super polarizing to fight against, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because definitely I think a lot of these characters deserve to be that strong considering the show that they come from, and they were that presence in the show. But I'm like, damn. Like, again, like certain characters I really had an affinity for because they were easy to combo with or had an expression, like character expression that I like to use in fighting games. And then some of them were just like, oh, I get why they're strong, but I just can't use them because they're not my type of character. And that's kind of what happened to me with this game. You know, this is one of the few games of the year that I'm not, you know, going to talk about too often or too much outside of, like, my time playing it. Like I said, the single player experience is like a really, really watered down version of the story, so that's not super impressive. And then the state of the online in that game was kind of just dog water. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have any footage of me playing online when it first released, but just imagine the worst amount of unintuitive, like, frame skipping or animations not lining up, and also like you're fighting somebody who's in the same region as you, but they start teleporting around and doing attacks that you can't even perceive, and then you're getting put into a combo and basically lose all your health, because every single character in this game has the actual touch of death. And that's kind of scary, considering if you're playing online and you can't react to the actual thing going on, and you basically just die. But like I said, Hunter X Hunter, even though the game may have been bad, it was the first time that I was motivated to watch through the whole anime. So, if anything, I at least praise this game for getting me interested in Hunter X Hunter, because I should have been on that so long ago. But now that I am on it, I'm like, yeah, it was an extremely good anime. It's really just a shame that the game that's supposed to be referenced to the anime kind of left a poor impression on a lot of people's, minds, and I would say mouth, but I'm like, there's nothing about that. I'm not Hisoka right now. But, I had fun with the time that I had with this game, and could I even recommend this game on a discount? I think you can recommend this game if it's $20. I think if you can get it on a $20 sale, then you should try it to just experience it. You may only play it for like a couple of days, or may have a few people that you bring over just to try the game and see if it's any interest to your small group of people. But, even if they fix the online, it won't take back the experience of online that I already felt. And also just how, as somebody who's a very casual fighting game enthusiastic, enjoyer, very casual, like, I get enthusiastic about fighting games, but I only mostly play them casually to get casually good at them, Not to ever be, like, doing long string combos that basically are like mathematician repetition, But, to do some funny stuff sometimes, I say this is one of those games where I'm like, it has a pretty difficult learning curve, but also it doesn't, because most of your combos consist of only doing a few button presses and you can get full damage rather than doing very long strings and getting damage that way, because the damage fall off of doing longer strings in this game does not benefit you in any way. But yeah, that was Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact. One of the games of this year that probably is the most disappointing thing that I played on my list this year, only because I saw so much potential after watching the anime that I got myself so overhyped that it turned out that the actual company who made this may have oversold me on it, but it's okay. It's okay, Because at the end of the day, not all the games of the years are made equal, so we can just take solace in the fact that at least I got to experience something that I definitely wouldn't experience again, so, that's pretty cool. But now let's move on to the next game of this year. Now, for this game of the year, I'm trying to make an intro that kind of reflects this moment in time. Because back in good old 2014 or 2015, back when the Wii U existed, this game initially released, and it was the first Xenoblade game that I ever played to completion. So coming back to this game about a decade later was crazy to me, because quite legitimately this game is basically what I remembered from beginning to end, just now with higher fidelity. And it's really special replaying this game this year. Mostly because, again, I've been kind of dying to wanting to go back to the game, but since I, for a while now, have gotten rid of my Wii U when I got the Switch, and it was collecting dust and wasn't really doing anything, and I gave it away to a family that probably could have used it more than me because I wasn't using it, and I said, hey, it's better than selling it, I guess, so I should be a good Samaritan. Xenoblade Chronicles X has always been one of those games that's just kind of eluded the populace, because of the fact that it wasn't allowed to exist for a long time. And I don't know if it was because of licensing things, or just the fact that they were working on, the end of the trilogy, which is Xenoblade 2 and 3 at the time, so going back and making a remake really wasn't on the table for them. But either way, I was really glad when it came out this year. I think it came out in, was it March or May? I think it was March right into April, because around the time I played this game was also the time I was going to be hearing that, hey, I was going to be let go of work and I was going to have to figure out how to deal with life. And I guess playing Xenoblade Chronicles X actually was pretty interesting while that was happening, because that kind of, is the theme of that game. The main theme of Xenoblade Chronicles X is more just understanding the journey and trying to connect with people, even through all walks of life, because we may not all agree on stuff, but we all want to survive and just have a place to fit in and belong, even if it takes us a while to, understand each other. And I think that's always been, the most impressive thing about the game. Like I said, from a narrative standpoint, this is the weakest narrative in Xenoblade history, only because the way that it presents itself, you have to think abstractly, because the narrative isn't just the story, it's the things that you experience by playing. A lot of Xenoblade Chronicles X, to me, and why I very much rate it high, and it was one of the potential games of this year for me, period, is because I do like the actual sub-narrative that's always being pushed, where you're playing and exploring and trying to make the most of this world that wants to both coincide with you, but also wants to ravish you, you know? I think it's very interesting that I like this game because even though Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are very good games, I could tell that the team of Monolith Soft definitely helped with those games back in the day. I could tell that after playing Xenoblade Chronicles X, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool formula. I wonder if they're ever going to use it again. And lo and behold, the most popular Zelda game to ever exist was made with a lot of the talented people who made Xenoblade Chronicles X, a game on the Wii U that, you know, with a very underpowered console, but still was able to get so much out of it. And I think that's absolute cinema. Now, I would like to say that this game is 100% perfect, and in some aspects it is. Most of the things that happened in this, I don't know if I would say remake or HD-ified re-release, because it's a little bit of both. Because I'll be 100% transparent before we continue on with this little tangent that I'm going to do. I have not played the new content in this game because you have to beat the main game. And for reference, I beat the main game back in August when the game came out in like March. Now, what happened was life happened and I got very busy. So I never really got the chance to go back to this game. And as you guys know, I played 20 plus games this year. Some of them to completion and some of them to my natural realization that I need to like focus and sit down and do this games of this year. So you can tell me whether or not that I had time to go back and finish the end of this game. But there was a long gap where I basically just wanted to beat the game, at least the regular story content, and then eventually go back, but I never got to. So I'll just say this, I never got to play any of the new content. Only got to see the new content through content creators that I know and I trust and showed that content, and I was like, you know what, I'm still happy I got to see it even if I hadn't got to physically play it. Because again, I still got to play the physical regular game and play that from beginning to the regular epilogue of the game before the new expansion stuff or the extra, you know, epilogue stuff happened. So, to talk about the game, the gameplay is basically the same as when it came out on the Wii U. It's Xenoblade Chronicles with a cool twist where you get to choose your own classes. You master the classes to keep your arts, and then you just kind of build your own builds to make your own character, to have your own story. Now, like, I think they buffed a lot of different kits in this game compared to the first one, so a lot more classes are viable, and there's a lot more unique ways to play the game instead of just being locked down to, like, a very few really good builds, but obviously the good builds are still good, and then the new stuff that they have is really good. They have new characters and NPCs and story scenarios. Some of them are more interesting than others, obviously. And like I said, I didn't get to play all the epilogue stuff at all, but all the new content with new characters that they added for the main game were pretty cool. And I did stream every single one of the playthrough, like the main playthrough of all the stuff that we did. So if you ever want to see any gameplay of it, we still have it up on the channel if you're interested. And like I said, I think the flow state of just traveling the world of Mira again really showed me something that, you know, I missed in video games, and and that's why we were, at least the Xenoblade community, we're basically just kind of harping on the fact that we're like, we really would like, and I mean this sincerely, I would really like the next Xenoblade game to have some sort of like progression system like this. Because like I said, the whole point of the game is more just traversal, unlocking different areas, and then like getting used to the new wildlife and the new biomes and the new areas just to unlock things. Because the fun of the game is mostly the journey. Like, the destination is also nice, but the journey is like the thing that we all strive for in this game to like really enjoy. Taking our time and finding nooks and crannies and secrets. And because of this thing, you know, these things that we keep finding and, you know, keep learning about while playing the game, gives it like the life and personality in its own will of its own. I think most people who play this game might be disappointed because if you played Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, or 3, they have a clear like A, B, C, D, E, F to all the way to Z plot, you know, where each thing is going to tie into each other narratively wise, and there's not going to be any weird gaps where you kind of just are not doing like narrative stuff and just gameplay. But I think that's what I always appreciated about X in the long run, because even though the narrative in this game is split up into chapters that you can only do once you like explore and like get further into the game, find different regions and like unlock stuff by just wandering around, because like the game benefits you the more you're willing to explore and just do stuff and help NPCs and do different quests and just enjoy yourself. It gives you more appreciation for the story, for the like little moments, for the hype moments in the game, because you kind of naturally grow an affinity. And also, this is one of the few games where most of the quests are voiced. For this remastered or HD re-release, some of the voice actors clearly aren't around to do some of the voice acting, and that's really prevalent in the new game stuff that they added. And I won't lie, it's a little bit jarring, but like I said, they couldn't spend the money for everything for this remake, so they just did the new stuff that they could with the new characters, and some of the old characters that didn't have their voices had, you know, a last minute emergency backup, you know. And you guys, it is what it is, you know. I'm not super annoyed by that, but it's more just the fact that it's a little bit jarring to be playing regular content and everything basically feels the same, and then you're like, here's new content and here's your one character just sounding completely different, and it's really a little bit awkward. But overall, now, do I think that this game is for everybody? Hell no. Like, I would say the people that should play this game are the people who like Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but also like Tears of the Kingdom and just getting lost in a world where you can just run around and try to get to different places by using the movement and trying to use your expertise of learning how like to navigate this world and find enjoyment in that. Like I said, if you don't like the combat in this game, it's going to be a hard sell. And if you don't like Xenoblade Chronicles 1 combat, that's where it's mostly based around. So that's why I say if you don't like Xenoblade Chronicles 1, you don't like more open narrative games, because I feel like this is the best interpretation of an open narrative game, where it's like, yeah, there's narrative and there's like story here, but it's mostly a backseat to the actual gameplay and side quests that actually do most of the world building. And then like, you know, just trying to enjoy the journey. Because I mean, the thing that's tough about this game coming out this year, and the only reason why it's not my game of this year, is that I did play it once upon a time ago, and even if I played the new content, I don't think it was enough to change my mind about all the other games that I played this year, which is really sad, because if this was any other year that this game came out, it probably would have been actually on the top of the list for like game of the year for me, but because of it not being the only game that came out this year, that became pretty tough. But again, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a lovely game. You get to get mechs to fly in the sky, and you go around the world basically learning and adapting to this new life and environment. And showing us that, yeah, through most of our life, we might find ups and downs, but we'll have people that we have by our side, and, you know, will show us the way forward, even when things are all but doomed to be kind of hard to, like, navigate in life. But that's okay, because we always have people that are by our side. But as we move on to the next game of this year, please, if you have a chance to play this lovely game, please go ahead and buy it, especially if you can get it on sale, because Xenoblade Chronicles X is definitely an experience that you can only experience once in your lifetime, and you won't forget it. Ladies and gentlemen, for this next game of the year, I would like to give a little bit of perspective on myself and for this series. I have been playing Rune Factory since the 3DS game Rune Factory 4, and as they've been releasing the games on the Nintendo Switch, I've been basically going back through the catalog, playing 3, 4, 5, and now Guardian of Azuma is the strangest game that I've played in this series, because it's really good, but also really, like, polarizing in a lot of ways. So, how do we start this off? Guardian of Azuma is a Rune Factory game that is the most un-Rune Factory game that I think I've played. Not because it's not Rune Factory and it has the same, you know, story beats or characters or types of, you know, enemies that you expect from these games. No, it's because it's a very, very, very linear game. Not too, like, super linear, but, like, this is how I can express myself from, like, when I first began this game back in, I think, April or May of this year when the game released on the Nintendo Switch regular. When I was playing this game, there was something that was gnawing at the back of my head where I was like, wow, this game is very polished. It has voice acting. The character models for 3D actually look pretty good in this game versus how it looked to 5. And every single major or minor character in this game has some sort of voice dialogue, which is unheard from Rune Factory, because if you played Rune Factory 5 like I did, I really enjoyed that game for the gameplay and for the characters, even though there's not very many that stand out that most people will like, but I found the way to appreciate each and every one of them. But it had no voice acting, and that was really jarring because they would also sprinkle in voice acting at random points, and I'd be like, wow, this is not how I thought this character would sound. But hey, they don't have full voice acting, so I can kind of just remove myself from this. But for Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, this had a very scripted baseline things that it wants you to know, like a story that you will see if you want to complete it to then be able to have the extra dungeons and stuff, and that you will just be experiencing the same as everybody else who plays the game. Because there's very little wiggle room for basically going off the trail and doing other things. Now, I will say, most Rune Factories are like this, but it feels... what's the word I'm looking for? When I play other Rune Factory games, because of how the worlds are constructed, you don't feel like you're gated off from things, you know? There's not like a necessary time where you need to do the next story event. It kind of can either just appear and you can do it, or you can just continue doing your regular farming thing and go and do your story whenever it is. Like, obviously in other Rune Factories, they're like, wow, this ordnance thing is happening and it's bad, we gotta go deal with it. But then you could just spend a month in game just gardening and not having to worry about it. Now, like, this also happens in this game sometimes, but it's not as frequent because almost every single time that you do anything related to the story, they will give you a cutscene and tell you the next objective so you can get the next thing done, or you'll be locked out of certain minor, features until you do the next story event, which is interesting to say the least. And a lot of my thoughts of this game have changed over the couple of months it took me to not only play most of the game, and then I took a break and then to finish it near the end of the year because I wanted to play the last of the game in the Switch 2 edition of this game, which also definitely the way to play. If you can play it on any other console or on the Nintendo Switch 2 where it gets the actual frame rate it deserves, yes, please play it on that, because that is most indefinitely a game changer for this game. Alright, so let's talk about some of the things that I really liked about Azuma, and then go to the things that I really don't like. Because there's not that much, really, in the really don't like category. Because like I said already, we're getting spoiled for a Rune Factory game for, first of all, having voice acting. Voice acting has not been in Rune Factory for a little bit. Like I said, they put sprinkles here and there for each game, but like, you don't get like full on dialogue cutscenes with like crafted, cutscenes with the characters interacting, having different emotions and like influxes. Like, this is the first time that I played a Rune Factory game and I said, wow, I can actually like watch most of this instead of having to voice act everything, which is, I'm fine with, because me personally, some of the dialogue in this game was pretty good and well written, and I wasn't really bothered by it. But, because of how these cutscenes are all actually voice acted and stuff, definitely some of the cutscenes overstayed their welcome, but it's not that it was completely bad for always doing that. Just some of the cutscenes in this game where I'm like, this didn't need to be probably a 10-minute or 5-minute cutscene. It could have been like less than that, or not even existent at all. But it's okay. It's their first time doing that, because I think the last time they had a Rune Factory that was 3D was, forever ago. I think it was like in the early 2010s or near the end of 2010s. Ugh. Which, again, that just shows how far we have come from the last couple of Rune Factories to now. And even if this is a spin-off game, they did a lot of really interesting stuff with the main characters. Now, I'm not going to spoil the story, but it actually did matter about what sort of main character you chose, whether it's the male or female, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that the progression in this game for unlocking things is also pretty good, though I'll say this, it took me about 100 hours to beat like the main game, and I got through, I think, every single season of the game this time around, instead of beating it like really prematurely in like fall, Because, like, most of the time when I play Rune Factory, I'm not trying to rush for the story. It's just I'm playing as optimal as I can to enjoy the game. And in this game, it's pretty hard to, like, rush for the story and beat the game optimally. Because sometimes, and this is one of the gripes I have with this game, sometimes they just give you a cutscene and say, hey, you can't do anything until tomorrow, where it triggers a cutscene. Which I think is a better solution than some of the other Rune Factories, where it's like, oh, wait for this random event to happen after you do a very subtle thing, either for a quest or a random friendship thing, and then you can actually have access to the story. It's mostly just, hey, you go to sleep after this event, and we'll give you a warning to make sure you do stuff before this event, and then you'll be told to go to sleep for the next day. And I guess I should talk about the main mechanic of this game that is different from other Rune Factories. The town building. Now, the town building in this game is very interesting because this is how you gain most of your stats, because cooking in this game is just replaced with just your healing items instead of actually giving you stats and other bonuses for eating each day. And now are just, hey, the more stuff you build in your town, they give you different things for your strength, your magic, your intelligence, you know, your magic defense, your regular defense, how much RP you have, and how much HP you have. Now, again, this might not seem like a huge thing, which for me it really wasn't, because I'm just kind of building out the towns every time I was playing the game to the best of my abilities because I wanted to. But if you wanted to make a specific build in this game, you kind of had to go out of your way to make sure that you learned what sort of things you can craft to give you the most stats in certain things. But it also didn't really matter, because I will say this: Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is probably the easiest of the Rune Factory games to kind of just exploit and just beat. I won't say that we hit a difficulty spike until... oh my gosh. We didn't hit a difficulty spike until I think the last 20 hours of the game, if I'm being honest, because at some point, you don't need to really craft any good items, because you get items and weapons and different recipes, like almost in every single dungeon you go in. And because of how the game is very linear to begin with, you're not going to miss most of these things because they're going to be right in front of you. You grab them. You're going to get a new weapon recipe. Then, by the time you're almost near done the dungeon, you might find like 2 more. So if you crafted any of the stuff before you were done this dungeon, then you probably already have better equipment before you even get out of the dungeon, because you entered the dungeon, found good stuff, and then by the end of it, you found even better stuff than the stuff you just found. Now, I don't know if necessarily this is a problem because of pacing, because again, this game basically paces itself as well as any other Rune Factory game, though you can't do it as quickly because, again, like I explained before with the timing system, cutscenes, and most stuff being kind of just, once you do X task, then they will do a cutscene so you can do X other task, and so on and so forth, basically throughout the entire game. There wasn't a time where I felt like I could go off the beaten path, other than to just do regular farming stuff and the town building stuff, which both of them are very good and intertwined within the game. And I really like the sacred relics, or the relics that you get from all of the gods in the game, because each of them have a thing to do with most of the other mechanics, which tie really well into each other, and that's cool. Gives a reason to use RP. Had the reason to use all of the different sacred relics in general, and all of the EXP system and the skill tree system I very much liked, because again, you could really find a build that you really like, or a weapon type you really like, and kind of run with it most of the game. Shoutouts to the fan and the light rod. Those were like my 2 favorite ones out of everything in the game. But yeah, this game was really good, and I think the only thing that held it back is literally, I think the pacing near the end was a little bit off. Like, and I mean off in like a way that I feel like the game could have been shorter and it didn't have to add an extra whole 3rd arc onto the game, because I think the first 2 arcs that they introduced were fine enough, but I guess it's, you know, Rune Factory tradition to usually have 3 arcs, and usually the 3rd arc leads into then the post-game. Which, again, I didn't really check out any of the post-game, and I know that there's other dungeons and probably stuff that you can unlock. But I think just beating the game, considering that they expect you to be, like, near max level, like level 100 by the end of the game, I think it's pretty fine, because I think this is the first Rune Factory where I'm like, if you wanted to try Rune Factory to see if this was a series that you would like to go back and try any of the other ones where they're, like, the isometric down, like, part 2D, 3D games, I think this is definitely the one that you start with, and this is the one I would recommend. Because, again, it's pretty, like, straightforward. Doesn't challenge you too much until, like, the second half of the game. But by that point, you're probably accustomed to doing a lot of the stuff that the game is asking you to, so you'll be able to power through it in no time. But yeah, I think the only thing that holds it back from being my game of the year this year, but it's still, like, up here on the list because I really care about it, and I'm almost talking about it for, like, almost 13 minutes, is because, yeah, this game does a lot of good things, and that I hope that they take towards the future for any new Room Factory game. I just hope that they decide not to make it extra long for no reason, because, like I said, I think 2 arcs in a Room Factory game is pretty solid, and then the third one should always be optional. But in this game, they made all 3 of them, like, a necessary thing because they wanted to focus more on a story and narrative that has this as... what's the word I'm looking for? A very successful and very, like, you know, satisfying ending. But, again, this has been one of the games of this year that I really do like and still appreciate, regardless of how much it did take away from some of the times from the other games of this year. But let us go now to a indie darling that none of you probably know about, but I was witness to from one of my favorite content creators of this year. So let us go to the next game of the year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is it crazy for me to say that now that I have an actual computer set up and I actually can do, like, really cool in-depth things like this, that I've been playing a lot of games on Steam. Most of the games that we've talked about are on Steam, and, you know, it's been a big radical change for me just playing stuff on the Nintendo console, and I know a lot of you are probably like, dang, I have a lot of more variety. So, this game, Drop Pockets, is probably one of the games that I played the most this year that I haven't actually 100% platinumed in this game because it requires a lot of time to do so. But Drop Pockets is a really interesting game that I learned from, once again, one of my favorite streamers slash content creators, Northern Lion, and he played it on one of his videos that I watched this year, and I said, wow, this is a game just meant for me. Even though I am very bad at billiards and I wish I was better, I don't take the time to practice, first of all. But second of all, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I would love to learn how to be better at, you know, billiards. And this game is literally a single-player billiard game where you just have a roguelike element of collecting different types of billiard balls and trying to get the max score you need to win. It's very simplistic in that nature, in that even though you would think it's so simplistic that how can I make a 7+ minute talk about it, there's a lot of things that are intrinsically very interesting about this game. When you first start the game, you get shown off a lot of things. Like, first of all, it's a pool game where you have to drop the pockets, you know. You gotta drop your pool balls into the pockets. Now, each pool ball will have a value intrinsic with them that gives you either currency or points. Both of these are very important because there is a combo system in this game where you get rewarded for comboing and getting more balls in time after time again. You get more points, you get a little bit of extra money, and the more that you're good at being accurate and being able to make shots, the more points you get, so on and so forth. Now, the gimmick of this game that makes it very interesting, after you hit your initial point score, then you have to face a boss. And now the bosses in this game, oh my goodness, the people who designed this game knew the intrinsic motivation that comes from having choice. Certain bosses in this game are very difficult to deal with, and some of them are very easy to deal with. But the interesting about every single boss in this game is that it changes up how you're going to play pool for the second half of this, you know, part of your run. So each time you go to a different pool board, your initial score is to get a certain amount of points so you can get to the boss. And then the boss is the final check for you to see if you have what it takes to sink enough balls to get enough points and to keep up your combo meter so you can beat the boss so you can get the reward. And then you go to this little mini game to get more balls that you can use on the board so you can become more powerful. And then there's a shop where basically you buy extra perks. Now, like I said, this all plays into each other very well. Like, this game is one of those games that I put like 50 hours in, and I still need to put more hours in because one of the achievements is sinking 10,000 balls, which in a given run, you're probably only going to think maybe close to 90, if not 100. and that's only if you decide to go into endless mode, where you try to get as far as you can while having a ridiculously high score you need to get. And like I said, this game is very interesting where you can kind of make whatever build you want, but you kind of do need to focus on making sure you don't buy too many useless things or things that counteract the strongest part of your build, so you don't lose out on extra points. Basically, if you, let's say, you chose the basic table for this game, because there is different types of tables that are different types of modes, just like loop plots that I talked about in the 3 minutes, gauntlet section, where each pool table has an intrinsic different thing that you're going to have to focus on. Like some pool tables are like, hey, instead of solids giving you more points, stripes are going to give you more points. Hey, instead of being able to score wherever you want, certain holes are only going to give you points. Hey, on this pool table, each time you go to a pool table, certain holes are just going to completely be blocked off, so you have to figure out how to be able to make the most out of the drop pocket holes that you have, that you can actually get bonuses and your score. And that's what makes Drop Pocket such a fun and unique game to keep going back and playing, because each run can kind of feel similar, but will always challenge you to try to do something different because of the fact that you're given the tools that you are given. You get to choose each boss each round out of 3. Some are easy, some are medium difficulty, and some are hard. And really it's just mostly dependent on what type of build you're already building out. Like, you can build like junk balls in this game, like sports balls, space balls, glass balls, big balls, small balls, metal balls, rubber balls. Again, as you can tell, there's a lot of type of balls in this game, and this is the most that a man will ever talk about balls in his life. But genuinely speaking, every single time that you decide to make a run in this game, you have to be conscious of what you're putting on your board, because, hey, I have a huge ball that gives me a lot of points, but if you don't have one of the drop pockets being big enough to sink it in, you can try to force it into the hole, but it might not go in, but you might get points. But it's a risk because it's not guaranteed every time. Or you can play a glass ball, and hey, instead of sinking it into the pockets, what you need to do is break it on the table. And every time you break a glass ball, you get the points instead of having to sink them in. Which is cool, because if you have a bunch of glass balls, basically you can break a whole bunch on your first or second turn, and then get the point score you need, so you can go right into the boss and use the regular balls to sink them in. Like, there's a lot of cool synergies and different types of way to play in this game that makes it so much fun to go back to. Do I play on every different pool table? Hell no. I only did those for the achievements, and like I said, I'm only missing 2, which is looking at the staff credits, which I haven't done yet because I thought that would be my last one I would do, because it's very funny and I could do that at any point. But also, having to think 10,000 balls means I would have to play this game for probably another 20 or so hours, which I'm getting closer to getting to that achievement, but it really does take a long time, because unless you're just focusing on this game to get that achievement, you're not going to probably get it anytime soon, because, like I said, each round, if you get a successful round of like doing all 10 of the bosses and getting to the final round where you get to then do endless, you'll probably think about 100 balls. And if not, close to that. But unsurprisingly, I do think Drop Pockets just has a really good way of inviting the player to just play, and kind of you just figuring out how to like best navigate your pool table and your different designed things to just kind of elevate your own gameplay. Like, right now I can say that I think I'm really good at the game now, because after playing it for like 20 to 30 hours, I kind of know what bosses that I have a really good chance of beating, when I don't have a good chance of beating, what type of items I want to buy in the store, what I don't need to buy in the store. But there's always an intrinsic motivation to try different things and have different runs. And if you and a friend have this game and play it together, like in a Discord, it's kind of fun to see how you guys can improvise and have like different type of challenge runs for one another, to try not to just do same builds and just kind of see how to build out to like win. Now, Drop Pockets, again, unironically could have been the game of the year for me this year, because genuinely speaking, this and Loop Plots are both of the 2 indie games that I played that I said, yeah, this just makes a lot of sense to me. You know, I really understand why I like it, and I could just sit down for like a couple hours on end and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna play this for a couple hours and lose my life away. It's like, this is like my Belotro, you know? as somebody who hasn't played Balatro but understands that Balatro is very addicting because of the way that the game makes you think about the game and makes you think about ways to be able to improve your way of playing the game. That's Draw Pockets to me, but in more of a fun, interactive way that I like playing or thinking about being good at billiards. But I'm never gonna probably be that good. But hey, I can always stream and still practice. So, you know, that's what makes this game very good. And as one of the games of this year, I'm genuinely surprised how much fun I had with this. And again, I've done a lot of challenges in this game, so believe me, I'm going to probably get the achievement by the end of this year because I'll have a lot more free time in the last couple of weeks leading up to the new year. So hopefully by that point, I can put that then up on my board of things that I 100% did on Steam, and that would be cool. But now it's time to get down to the final 4 games of this Game of the Year. Which, again, this is the toughest year that I had to kind of think about what I wanted to do for, like, Game of the Year. So, let's go ahead and, you know, find some remnants of a place that I used to know very well. But, you know, been cast aside by some witches. As we're closing and getting ready to get to the top 3 nominations of the games of this year, it's really tough putting the last kind of like hurrah of games that I really like at this list, because genuinely to me all of these games that I've been talking about are games of this year in some respect, right? I like all the video games that I play for different reasons, and that I find interest or a real purpose behind all of the games, whether it be the journey, the destination, or something a little bit in between that gives me intrinsic motivation to finish things. Like, there are a few games that I would definitely tell you about that would be on like a, hey, they would have made my list if they didn't either annoy me or tick me off or did something that made me not want to complete the game. But Hades 2 is not one of those games. Hades 2 is one of those games that was in early access last year, but I refused to play it last year because I knew that by the time that the full game released, I'd be playing it and trying to learn some of the stuff about it, and I wouldn't have enough time to play it because, hey, guess what? One of the games on this year definitely disrupt the flow of basically all the games that I wanted to play at the last couple of, you know, months of this year. And because I had IRL real stuff that I was doing in life and other things, playing this game was basically not feasible. Mostly because I did buy this on PC. You know, I bought Hades 2 on PC. So the only way I was going to play it if I was always going to be sitting down at my computer. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I had plenty of things in life that I was doing. You know, I traveled to a different part of Canada, kind of did some self-exploring, you know, self-reflecting, a lot of different other things. But Hades 2 is a game of all time, but it really sucks that it came out this year, because, quite legitimately, Hades 2 is a game that I really like, but I don't think it's my game of the year this year. And that pisses me off, because I really do like this game. Now, if you played Hades 1, I don't have to explain what this game is about. This game is about high-octane action of learning different weapons and learning different skills and abilities so you can craft the perfect run so you can beat the boss of the game after going through like 3 or 4 different floors of pure ecstasy. But this game has actually 8 floors, which are 2 different runs. You can have the going to Hades to save, you know, your family that's trapped by Kronos, or going to the Mount Olympus, or sorry, the Mount of Olympia. I don't know actually how that's pronounced, but anyways, you know, and go and fight the Titan that was sealed away for a long time, and save Olympia from like literally getting destroyed, which is interesting because again, the reasons why you're doing these things in this game are a little bit skewed. Because time powers are always interesting to write into your narrative because that's a justification of things. But, like, at the end of the day, Hades 2 is a harder narrative than Hades 1. And I'm just saying this as somebody who has been playing it since the, I've played it since the open beta midway through this year, up to the release, and then me seeing all the new story stuff that they added. Plus, I didn't get to beat the game because there's a lot of runs you need to do before you get... How would I explain it? Basically, you need to do a lot of runs before you actually get narrative conclusion that feels satisfying, just like the original Hades. But because there's double the amount of content, of course, I'm going to be 100% transparent with you guys. I got to play like 30 hours of this game, but I'm still not done with the game. Like, at least this time coming into this game, I realized that there's going to be a narrative and like stuff that I'm not going to get to, because the next game on this list literally took away most of the time that I was going to give to this game because of when it released. And it probably showed up on the screen for a second, but like, I don't blame it, because I still played a lot of Hades 2 pre-release and a little bit after release, and I still like the game. I really enjoy the gameplay. The narrative, again, I feel a little bit like, I like it, but also I'm like, yeah, it's pretty hard to follow up something that was already peak and make it twice as peak without having to realize that you have to make a whole bunch of characters that you gotta care about, which, again, most of them I like. It's not like I dislike any of them. It's more just the idea of being like, can you consistently make it so every single aspect of the first game can be lightning in a bottle twice? And I think, for the most part, they succeeded. But also, learning from other creators and other people who have also played this, there's some things that got changed that I will never get to experience because I never played it day one and because of a disruption from another game. So, there's also a perception that I won't have that other people have about this game. And I feel like that's a good and a bad thing. Because, like I said, I just played this game mostly for the gameplay and the fact that, upgradedly, this game is like super cool and super fun. So I like trying my best to like enjoy the game for what it is, regardless of the fact that, yeah, maybe narratively it's not strong as the first game in its seeming, and also trying to tie all the narrative with all the new characters and all the new scenarios. But like I said, this is a game that's twice as big as the original one, so they have to do, I would like to say, a little bit of twister just to try to say like, oh, well, we can put plot and stuff that's relevant here, but also have more characters to have relevancy or different types of conversations here, but also realize that we can't make it always super, consistent and cohesive because of the fact that we are trying to spread ourselves a bit thin between two different types of things. Which, again, a bold new direction. Like I said, I don't even hate Hades 2, and then the only reason it didn't make my top 3 is because literally I wish I got to play more of it. And that's basically just the gist of it. But as you're seeing on screen, we got the similar gameplay of, having our regular attacks, our special attacks. We have a new attack that's basically like a ground trap that slows down enemies and projectiles and then does damage afterwards. We got a lot of the gods from the previous game in here and some new ones. Shout out to Apollo, by the way. Apollo is like my favorite god from this game. I like him a whole lot, and most of his powers are good on any type of build that you're using. So shoutouts to Apollo, you're really awesome. Artemis, my dear, I still love you, don't worry. You're in this game too, and I love her. Her design in this game is just as good as the first one, if not better. And I still teeter towards the original a little bit, but I just love Artemis, so I have a bias, okay? All the new characters are also cool, but like I said, Apollo's like my dude, so like I like him a lot. And again, like a lot of the things that you like from the first game are in this game. Like I think the upgrade system being more of like I definitely think like there's a bunch of mechanics like the Arcana cards, which is your more permanent upgrade system, which I think has more layers than the original like mirror. A little bit harder to like start like going and being really powerful because you need to play quite a few runs before you get to a point where it gets a lot easier to get powerful in this game. That, and also because of how the narrative works in this game, there's literally story points where you are going to be put at a disadvantage because of a character that gives you a narrative reason why fighting things or getting to new levels is harder, and passing them are going to be harder. Which I think is interesting, because I didn't think they were going to take an approach where they're like, hey, here's a character that literally gives you more damage for the new floor that you're going to, so good luck, bozo. And I'm like, that's crazy, why would you do that? But I'm like, it brings that character more actual relevance into the story and gives them a purpose. it gives the world a different way of being viewed. So, like, genuinely speaking, I really like Hades 2. Again, narrative-wise, I feel indifferent because, like I said, I still like most of the narrative that's being spoken. I don't really hate it, but I also haven't played enough of it to, like, give anybody who's watching this a really good, 100% rundown of the game. But the gameplay, if you're looking for the same sort of gameplay, it's that enhanced. The only thing that they changed is that you have magic, so magic basically means that it's a different type of resource that you gotta manage, and I think it's fine. A lot of people complained about magic because it didn't allow you to spam or do things that you could in the original game, but honestly, it's balanced out by the time you get, like, your Arcana cards up, and you have different types of boosts and passives that makes it so stuff isn't as hard to manage. Again, shout out to Apollo, because literally one of his abilities just lets you regain magic, so you never have to worry about that ever. Or you just get the Arcana cards, and then you get that maxed out, and then you got that. Like I said, plenty of ways to play, and they give you many ways to, like, circumvent a lot of the things that might be a struggle in the first, like, couple of hours of playing, but Hades 2 was a wonderful game. I really just wish that another game didn't come out that kind of disturbed everything, but I guess we're going to be talking about that next in the games of this year. Well, my lovely chows of the internet, we're finally here. We're finally here to the apex of what we've all been waiting for, the final 3 on the games of this year list. Now, I would like to just say, to every single game that was talked about on this channel for this video, just know that I like them and I love them a lot. But sometimes, a dark horse shows up out of nowheres, and we get bombarded with the craziest news drop this year could have possibly had, even though I already knew it about, like, last year when I beat Hollow Knight. But we're talking about Silksong and how it's in my top 3, and I'm not even a Hollow Knight fan like that. But somehow, in some way, without most odds, I played Hollow Knight Silksong, and it's kind of really good. I actually was completely surprised when I played this game to start to finish, did all the acts, and yeah, this game is just good. I really have very minimal things to complain about compared to the rest of the community, of course, but like I said, so let me just give you a little bit of backstory, right? Last year in 2024, I played Hollow Knight for the first time. I streamed it. I didn't get the true ending. I just played the game until I felt like I was good to just go ahead and fight the whatever final boss I decided to fight, and then call it that, I'm not going to look back on the game because I had it on my PlayStation 4, which is currently collecting dust, by the way. So I'm not going to be going back to that game anytime soon, right? And I thought to myself, as somebody who doesn't play a lot of Metroidvanias, but I did play like 3 last year, so maybe I'm a liar, surprisingly, I did enjoy the game. I did enjoy the boss fights. I did enjoy the atmosphere, but I was like, it's not reaching me like I felt like it reached everybody else who played this game back when it came out in 2016, right? So I was like, maybe this series isn't for me. Jump forward to this year, back in, I believe, the beginning of summer, when they said, hey, we got an announcement coming up, so get ready. And then literally a couple of weeks later, in August, they were like, yeah, we're just dropping the game on September the 4th and ruining your entire schedule of what you were going to play. And I was like, oh, brother, why would you do this to me? And now listen to me very well when I say this. I was not expecting myself to enjoy streaming and playing through most of this game. And you know what really changed my mind, about playing this game? Remember earlier when I said I saw my friend in the city play Have a Nice Death? When I saw my friend playing Silksong, because it came out around the time I went to the city for that weekend, right? So when I went around to the city and watched him play a little bit, like I said, I only was spoiled up to like the very early beginnings of the game. Like it was only like the first couple of hours in. But I was like watching him fight one of the bosses, then I'm like, bro, listen, if my friend from the city is listening to this, Just know I'm not roasting you too bad when I say this, but I clearly have more of a background in platformers and action platformers as that, especially if they're 2D. So watching them struggle on a boss that made me realize that I could probably beat in my first attempt really made me question a few things and be like, yeah, why am I not buying Silksong again? Because, you know I wasn't in love with Hollow Knight, okay? I was not going to become a fan overnight, but I definitely appreciated playing it because I actually had a greater perspective of me playing these types of games. And then being like, you know what? Maybe these games aren't so bad, and maybe I'm just afraid of the notion of, like, scavenging for stuff in every corner and everything. So then I came back and I started streaming it, and you guys loved it. Even though we did have a few moments where we crashed out in the game. I think the narrative behind playing this game and all the buzz it generated and how it basically broke every single, you know, platform's, like, purchasing, like, trying to cash out, they tried to get the game to download it, and everything was down for, like, Steam, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. Only few games in this genre have really been able to do that, right? So, like, it's very telling that, you know, the people who really liked this game really liked it. It was a $20 game that came out, disrupted the whole gaming industry for a whole month and a half, had the biggest talks and controversies, and, like, very vocal people talk about whether a game should be accessible or not, whether the game is too hard or not, and basically by the end of it, I love Silksong. I love the fact that the movement and the fighting in the game was very balanced. I like that even though it was challenging at first, most of the people who should be playing this game should have played Hollow Knight first. I don't care who you are, if you're complaining about the difficulty in this game, and you already beat Hollow Knight and then beat the Path of Radiance and all that other garbage, sorry, I shouldn't say garbage, but other stuff that's already in the base game, and then you're saying that Silksong is hard, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm very confused. Because I didn't even play all of that, and I'll just tell you, the only things that were very difficult for me in this game was me not losing my patience because they really wanted to hammer in. Yeah, this place is not... This whole map area that you're going to be exploring literally wants to kill you. So as long as you know that going in, then just don't be surprised when you die, or take really dumb damage, or take a lot of damage from creatures. Like, I think some of you can realize when I was uploading all of my shorts for this year, when it came to Hollow Knight, I said, you know, we waited 7 years for this, and honestly, you guys should have really expected that. I wasn't being a hater, I was just saying, in perspective of everything, 7 years for all of this fun stuff that actually went on for the game, and all the fun and all the frustration I had was actually warranted, you know? I felt like, by the time I finished Silksong, that I'm like, maybe I am a fan of Hollow Knight a little bit, or at least the Silksong, and I'm glad that the DLC is going to be coming out sometime next year, because, yes, they are already saying that, yes, the game that's $20 is now going to get, like, a free DLC patch, which is, like, crazy. But, like, I'm not surprised. Team Cherry kind of cooked, got a game out there once they were finished and they were happy with their product. Sure, people complained and argued and did whatever for the game, but even as I stand here on my platform, I'm not even really talking about the game because you guys know and I've already heard of it or already played it. Like, this game is very good. This game gives you plenty of options to try to tackle all the challenges in the game. Do I hate the Metroidvania style looking for secrets still? Yeah, I still hate hidden walls. But, like, all the boss fights really made this game. I wish I cared about the Hollow Knight story a little bit more, but I got the gist of it from my osmosis, because I have osmosis. Every single video game series I kind of get an osmosis for, and I learned things just through the community itself. So I wasn't, like, super, like, not knowledgeable about the story. But even the, like, getting to the third act, beating everything there, and getting the true final ending was very fun. Everything about this game was fun. Even though I was frustrated sometimes, I was like, I didn't feel like it was a burden to stream by the time we got to, like, honestly, near the end of the first stream, I was just like, you know what, we can cook this game. This game isn't too hard. There were a few times where we had a few bosses that stomped us for a little bit. Luigi, the chef, I still fucking hate your guts, and if you're listening, fuck you still. I hate your boss fight, and I hate the way that you move. But anyways, other than that, the game was really fun and enjoyable. And, like, as I'm recording this at 7:12 a.m. on the 18th of December, I still think about the fact that, yeah, even though I played Hades 2, this game definitely scratched an itch that I didn't think I even needed, but it literally disrupted my entire game plan and flow for what I was going to do for the rest of the year. I think that's insane that a game could just pop into your life. You didn't have very much affinity with the first game that I had, but then the second one just kind of clicked with you. Like, genuinely, I have to give props to Team Cherry, and that's why I said. And also, for like my bingo card for the Game Awards, for anybody who cares, I did put this as my Game of the Year. Because, you know, I didn't play Expedition 33, I watched somebody play it, so that's why my hands are up. Maybe I would feel different about that game if I played it, but I didn't play it. And I played Hades 2, and that was also on the Game of the Year, but I definitely put it to Silksong because, yeah, a game that literally disrupted the whole land, like the whole atmosphere and like communities of the gaming sphere, definitely should be recognized. And I know that a lot of people are disappointed that it didn't win Game of the Year and it only won one award, of, you know, Expedition 33. But like I said, I don't hate Expedition 33 for that. It's just, this year was stacked to begin with, and it didn't get any better, so like everybody was fighting for something, you know, for scraps. But, you know, either way, Hollow Knight Silksong is a very fun game, and this is my one endorsement, okay? This is my one and only endorsement for the game, because again, I didn't have to explain why it's on this list. Everybody knows why. But if you're thinking about getting this game, and you got frustrated and stopped playing it at some point, remember, this guy who doesn't even play Metroidvanias, who's very, very, very opposed to mostly playing them, who's kind of was scared of them, was able to beat this game. And I'm not even like, I don't play Souls-like, I don't play anything like that. So me, with difficulty of games, like if something's a little bit too difficult or annoying, I'll just put down the game. But this is the only game that I think that this year that challenged me as much as it did, and I was able to complete it. So like, if you are struggling with this game, you can do it. Believe me. Believe in yourself, because you definitely can do it. Is it worth doing it? I guess that's up to you, because my journey through Silksong is the reason why it's number 3 on my Games of the Year list, and why we're going to go up to, surprisingly, the toughest 2 choices of this year that, honestly, are crazy that they're going up against each other, but honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Fuck, I can't believe this is happening. So, this is rough, okay? So first of all, I started this section because you're already seeing what the game is on screen. I already know. Kirby Air Ride is my second game of this year. Now, I'm only swearing a little bit because it really could go either way between the top 2 ones on my list, because clearly you already can see the chapters and you already knew that it was coming. But Kirby Air Ride only came out less than a month ago by the time I'm recording this, and I've put almost 100 hours in it. This is a problem, because even though I've already put almost 100 hours in this game, I reached Rainbow Rank, which is the highest rank you can for City Trial. I'm going to be so transparent as I'm talking about this game. I have not touched a single thing of the road trip mode in this game. I'm going to be 100% transparent. Sakurai had made such a vast improvement to something I already love with this City Trial mode, with 16 players, us all playing in the same city that's bigger, better than ever, with all kinds of different random events and stuff, that, yeah, Kirby Air Riders definitely was going to be a contender for this year. As soon as I knew it existed and it was coming out this year, yeah, it was basically GG's, okay? Like, the only reason I'm kind of standing here and being upset is because the year that this was, it was not hard. It was not hard to know that I was going to place this in one of my top positions of this year. I just didn't know if it was going to take first, because the thing is, even though I have 100 hours in this game, really, and the day that this game came out, okay, I really need to emphasize this. The day that this game came out, I got sick, but I still was able to play at least a minimum of 4 hours that day while I was being sick. And the whole weekend that this game was out and I was sick, I was coughing, sneezing, not being able to see very well because I was that intoxicatingly sick, and I still played the game for all of that illness that I had that release week when I was sick. And you know how many hours I put in? I probably put in 20. even though I was sick, because I literally had an excuse to stay home and try to play as much as I could while also dying. Now tell me how many video games that, if you were like super medically sick and you felt like you were gonna be dizzy, vomiting, not being able to like sit for a long period of time, would you put that time and effort for? Because I'm gonna be just 100% honest with you, bro. I was insane for this game. I have been doing nothing but playing City Trial in this game, and I've been playing it for 100 hours. And I'm still going to be playing this game. Like right now, I'm going through withdrawal a little bit, because I should be playing it right now, but because I know I have to get this video out in the next, like, less than 7 days, I kind of need to lock in and just, you know, record this voiceover, think about the fact that, yeah, this game is really fun, all the characters in that game are good, you know, every person has a character or a play style that they like, and that's really fun. All the returning vehicles and all the new vehicles are really good. Skya is a very good place for City Trial, and I love it. I love all the new courses for Air Ride. I didn't play Top Ride too much. I played enough to play every stage once, and those are pretty good. And like I said, okay, I was being transparent. I have not touched Road Trip mode once. And you might be wondering, how could you play this game and played it for 100 hours and not touch it once? Funny thing that, you know, one of the craziest things is that I learned about the new two legendary vehicles you could get in City Trial just by simply playing it on ranked mode and them appearing, and I'm like, oh wow, that's a new legendary vehicle, that's cool. And then somebody got Gigantus, and I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Yo, now I know how to play story mode because I know it just can randomly spawn. And that's how my life went. Now, if you're wondering how I feel about the story mode or the road trip mode, which is basically the single player mode even without me touching it, I think that is the only reason why this game is not as high as it is. Now, I'm going to explain my reason why. So, for somebody who hasn't played this mode, you're sure going to give a lot of opinions about this mode that you never touched. But I think everybody has the same consensus as me. I don't think that you should play road trip mode twice to get the true ending. And also, I would only play road trip mode to unlock some of the characters that are harder to unlock with playing some of the other modes. Because I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm not going to be playing this Kirby game, this Kirby, you know, Air Riders games to be doing the checklist. That's not me. I play Kirby Air Riders because I want to play what's the most fun. And simply for me, this game existing in 2025 after almost 2 decades of not knowing that this game was ever going to get re-released, have a wave to play with a bunch of people on a modern system, having online has really changed my life on this game. Like, I already loved the original one. Don't get me wrong, I love original Kirby Air Ride. I have a physical copy of my GameCube copy in my dresser where I leave all my GameCube stuff because of preservation. I paid $70 Canadian, so it's almost like $90 for a hard copy of that game in modern day. Just to have this new release that I paid another $90+ for, and I don't regret. But that's what I think is really amazing about Kirby Air Riders. It is a game that is more of a party game than Mario Kart World ever would have been for me, and I'm so glad I bought it. Like, the simple dopamine of just playing City Trial for the past 90 to 100 hours that I've played Kirby has been wonderful. Ecstatic. Now, I feel bad that everybody is falling off of the game because if they played it for a little bit, they might have got the gist of it or got tired of it and will come back and play it like an hour every other day or week, you know. And I'm okay with that because, like I said, I'm going to still find matches and still have fun playing it. Like I said, right now I'm only taking a small break so I can actually focus on getting this, you know, video out. But genuinely to me, everything about Kirby Air Riders made me happy. As a person who simply wanted to play this game and have a modern way to play it with people. I've been in different paddocks of different people's who like streaming it. I like watching other people play the game because it's fun. Literally, the reason why I don't mind being on Twitter/X this year is literally so I can go on there and every so often I get to see videos of people saying funny moments or showing funny moments that they had in the game, or seeing certain clips that are just make you laugh because it's like, yeah, this game is really a celebration of what fun is. Like, I think Kirby Air Riders is the celebration of what games used to be, which was just pure fun and silliness. for the sake of being fun and silly, and you can make it a competitive thing by playing ranked mode, but even still, like, the fun doesn't escape you even if you play ranked mode. Yeah, of course, obviously not everybody's going to be like me and be insane and that grinds to rainbow rank. But, you know, also, like I said, I also play other games. So, like, I didn't grind for rainbow rank immediately. I only got to, like, Indigo, and then I took a little break, and then I went back, and then I just got rainbow rank, like, a couple of days ago. That I streamed, by the way. Because I will be still streaming this game into the next year. I just want people to know that. I'm not stopping playing Kirby Air Ride, even though I already put in 100 hours within the first month of the game, okay? I am not going to stop playing this game. Kirby Air Riders is now here to stay, and I will keep it. It is the most complex game that allows you to try different machines and vehicles that literally alter the way that you play, the way that you think about how you play with your characters that you decide to play on the machines with, and literally just change fundamentally what it means to have a racing game with different mechanics. Like, you know, I'm just very appreciative of Sakurai and his team for literally coming back and making one last hurrah for the series, even if it doesn't get another sequel or an update while I'm still relatively interested in video games. Because, you know, one of the things that I think that a lot of people don't think about is that one day I'm going to probably not like playing video games as much. Either because of all the, you know, I was going to say all the accumulated stress on my hands and my wrists, which will give me carpal tunnel at some point, and arthritis, but, you know, it's fine. When that day comes, you know, at least if I have to pass down my consoles and my hobbies to either, you know, my nieces or nephews, or any of the other relevant family that I'll have, at least it will always be a part of me that I at least got to enjoy at some point, this part of my childhood that I got to be reestablished as a 28-year-old adult, you know? And I think that this game and the next game on the list both kind of brought back a side of me that had a whimsy for video games. Like, genuinely brought back a sense of, like, wonder and why I like video games, and why these are my top two, you know, games of this year for a reason, you know? Like, genuinely speaking, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but even if Kirby is second place on this list, it's first place in my heart, I think. Because genuinely, playing any amount of game for a long period of time and within the first month, and knowing that you go so sicko mode on it that you would refuse to play the single player mode and just play the mode that you like, it's crazy. And Sakurai knew that. So he's like, yeah, this is for you, buddy. Shoutouts to Multi-Man. Just play my game and you'll be fine. And I'm like... And the craziest part is, okay, and this is going to be the only endorsement I'm going to say one more time for anybody who's still on the fence of Kirby Air Riders. I bought a Switch 2 for this game. I bought a Switch 2 for this game, and that's the only reason why I was going to buy a Switch 2 if I knew that this game was coming out. If this game did not come out this year, I would not have a Switch 2 right now, and I would still be playing my game of the year on my base Nintendo Switch. Full stop. If it wasn't literally for this game coming out, I wouldn't care about the Nintendo Switch 2 because I didn't think there was anything that I personally wanted to play on it. But now that I have Kirby Air Riders, it's all good, you know. Do I still care that I've spent the $800 Canadian to get this console and this game? Yeah, but hey, at least I got my money's worth, and I'm not going to complain about it every single day now for the rest of the year. Because, like I said, as soon as I got Kirby, I was like, yeah, this fulfills all my needs and wants for most of the year. But unfortunately, because, like we've already discussed, the only mode of this game I really cared about is City Trial, there is still one more game of this year that takes the crown from everything. And I think you guys already know, but if not, prepare to rev your engines, because these golden rings will make your engines sing, and our crowning achievement for game of this year. It's Sonic Racing, all across the world, faster than ever. Make those tires burn, these gold rings are treasure. Cause there's chaos every turn, cause we are racing. We're Sonic Racing. Do you know how many times I have listened to this song this year? Unironically, this is like one of the top songs that I played this year. This is only second to one, Vocaloid that I listened to. But, it's kind of crazy that you guys probably already knew that this was going to be my game of the year. Okay, so let's give a little bit of background about Sonic Racing Crossworlds. And the time that I knew that I was going to play this game for the rest of my time this year, and I almost have 200 to almost 250 hours in this game, that global test fire that happened back in August sealed my fate so hard that right now I'm still in disbelief that I played almost 24 hours of that demo within that weekend. You don't understand how insane that was. You don't understand why that meant so much to me, why I streamed it almost every time I had. Because no, that demo really awakened something in me and in this game that made me realize, yeah, this is going to be my game of the year. I was like, how did you just make a game, a multiplayer Sonic game that's really fun for me specifically, and then I was just going to play it? Like, genuinely speaking, I don't really, take most racing games that, seriously. Like, the last one I think I ever played was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, before any of these games came out. Like, before Kirby was announced, and this game was fully announced to come out this year, I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to play the last two games that I just put on my game of the year, but I want to play them because I'm like, of course I love Kirby. Because Kirby Air Ride was pretty cool, so of course I'm playing Kirby Air Riders. But then this game came out of nowhere, gave us 4 days of just playing a demo, and I said, I need it. I'm going through withdrawal. I'm going through actual withdrawal. Now, I told you guys in the previous one that I'm going through Kirby withdrawal because I do love Kirby Air Ride. But the withdrawal for this game, when I had 4 days of playing it for free and then putting 20 hours into it and then realizing it was going to go away, literally made me depressed for the next week. I was actually fighting my own depression for the next week, and this the reason why I had to play Silk Song, to distract me from the fact that eventually I will get Sonic Racing on my Nintendo Switch, and then I would be okay again. I had to literally do stuff to distract myself from knowing that I was going to get depressed. And can you believe that the games that I really liked this year all came out in the last 3 months or 4 months of the year? Because that's what seems to be happening as a pattern lately in these games of the year. Like, they need to stop with this because I don't have enough time to play other things when these games come out that I really like. Now, I'm just going to explain Sonic Racing Crossworlds for those who don't know. This is the game that got snubbed from the Game of the Year, the Game Awards, and didn't win any awards, even though it's a multi-platform cross-racing game where if your friend doesn't want to pay for a $500 console to play the same game as you, then they can just play it on one of their other, type of devices that they have, whether it's an Xbox, the PlayStation, Steam, or a Nintendo Switch, and it was cross-play. So there's no reason not to buy this game compared to the contemporary that won Best Racing Game, where it didn't deserve it, in my humble opinion. Okay, like I said, I would love Mario Kart World if it wasn't for the buy-in price, but sure, we can all justify it by saying it comes with the console and then pretend like all the problems that were with the game are fixed now because of a patch that was originally caused by another patch that made us not want to play it. But Sonic Racing Crossworlds is a game that basically had a single-player game that had a rival system, that was basically you choose your CPU that you want it to be tough or be a little bit difficult to face, you fight it, cool. Then you're into the game. Then you got online, you got customization for your carts. I didn't even talk about this with Kirby, but I'm going to bring it up here. The customization in this game is pretty good. Kirby's is a little bit better, but also I was just glazing the hell out of City Trial. But just the customization, the different types of builds you can make with the gadgets, the online being good enough, because like I said, it does still need work. Every game that has online still needs work. But this game was this was fine for me, because I'm it's a cross-platform game, so every single thing has to be considered here. The racing was fun. Yeah, there's still things that they need to kind of tweak. The unlock system is kind of good with the tickets, even though some of them are very expensive. But since if you're gonna no-life this game like me and very many different people who bought this game since its launch and its conception have been playing this, you probably unlocked a lot of the stuff that you wanted and now are just playing it for fun. I met some of my good friends, Rasta from this game, and some of my new subscribers from this game. I like playing the egg pawn, and now my egg pawn is basically the other half of myself when playing this game. I have almost by this recording, I almost have 2,000 games as this one character. Like, that's what I need you to understand. Like, this game fundamentally changed my brain chemicals to literally allow me to just keep playing this game and keep having fun with this game and wanting to get better at a racing game. Chat. Did you just hear what I just said? I wanted to get better at a racing game because of this game. Mario Kart 8, any of the Mario Karts have never made me want to do that. I just wanted to play a party game. But this game was the one that was like, oh, I get it now. I get why people want to be really good at racing games, because it's just fun. Like, I know there's a lot of complaining around this game, where it's like the item balancing or the gadgets, some of them are kind of busted, but also at the end of the day, you can make your own fun. Sometimes, yes, I know winning is fun. You know, I get it. Some of y'all just like winning and never losing. And I'm like, sure, if that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. But also triumphing over people by doing really silly or things that most people won't do because they're too locked in on trying to be the best versus the journey and having fun and just realizing that every little milestone of us getting better at the game and getting S ranks and doing all the fun stuff that the game has to offer was my entirety of my journey and destination. My destination was just proving to myself that there was a way for me to enjoy this game to its fullest and not feel like I had to compromise on those feelings. Like, I will, and like I said, with the Game Awards when we watched them, I was 100% certain that I knew it wasn't going to win an award, because I feel like every time a game is nominated for Sega, we see it, never usually gets picked unless it's something other than the Sonic IP, but that's okay. Because in my heart of hearts, this game definitely reached the masses of people. Because if you watch the Game Awards again, crazy how Mario Kart World got booed, but Sonic Racing, every time it was talked on stage, it got cheered. So you tell me if we actually lost. Because honestly, we won the culture war. People are understanding that, you know, Sega's trying. We are going to another golden age soon. I promise you. Within the next 3 years, we're going to go into the new Sonic Renaissance, and it's not going to even be close. Like, quite legitimately, at the things that are pacing out for, like, everything that I like about Sonic and how much effort and care that they've put into this game. And like I said, it does have flaws. I'm not going to lie. Do some characters not having voice acting a flaw? Yes. Do all the DLC characters not having voices kind of suck? Yes. Do having to pay for extra DLC upon playing or buying the game that's already a $70 game kind of a lot? Yes, but you don't have to buy the DLC. Do you miss out on stuff? Sure. I'm not going to say you don't, but also, like I said, I have a bunch of the free DLC, and I still haven't changed off the one character I decided to main in this game, so you tell me. I think the game is not measured by how much it's spent, it's more how much time you spent with it. A game is measured by how much enjoyment you had versus how much enjoyment needs to be had because you want specific things in it. Like, I'll be 100% transparent. I don't think I care about the ranked mode that we have for this game right now. That just recently came out in the past couple of weeks before recording this. But, am I glad it's there for the people who want it? Hell yeah. Do I hate playing it every single time I stream it? Oh, hell yeah. I want freedom. I want to go back to just playing regular rank and just kind of playing alongside people and seeing how many points I can get. If I can ever reach Legend 1, which I think I could. It's just I need to put some more time in this game, but you know, life and other games always will come out. So, I mean, I can only put so much time into this game that I can. But hey, do I like winding down my day by playing a few hours of this game every single day for the past 2 or 3 months? Hell yeah. When I went on my trip to go to Toronto to go and meet my family, my father and my sister for the first time, and then spend time with my relatives, I was still playing Sonic Racing. on my Switch 2 that I bought just for this game so I could have it in good fidelity and so I could have it on the go. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but I love this game. This is my game of this year, and I didn't think it was going to happen because usually, most of the time, I have like either an RPG on here or some sort of action game that I played that was kind of interesting, and that usually ends up being the game of the year. Like, if you checked from the past 3 games of the year that I did, I'm pretty sure you can either say, oh wow, he put another JRPG on the top of his list this year. But this time I get to say, it's a Sonic game that's not even an actual platformer, it's just a racing game that was really good, that really invited everybody to try to join in and play this more archaic, you know, pick up and play, just one more game, racing game. And honestly, it deserves to be game of the year for me, because genuinely speaking, I am happy where I am now living a life where people are cheering for Sonic again, you know? I don't make this franchise my complete identity. Well, I kind of do, because literally I call you guys the chows of the internet ever since, you know, forever ago. But, you know, Sonic does still hold a place in my heart. And I know a lot of people lost faith because, you know, they didn't like Sonic Frontiers or whatever. And they still are kind of on the fence of like, how they feel about Sonic. But I'm like, I feel, at least in my soul, is that I'm never going to change in liking Sonic. Like, of course he's going to have up times and down times and, you know, good patches and rough patches. But genuinely speaking, in these past couple of years, we've been nothing but trying our best to, like, see the good in Sonic and seeing that they are going in a better direction. You know? We're literally getting 2 comic book characters in this game in the next couple of months, and if I could nominate this game again for ongoing support, I would. But we already know how that's going to work in the next Game Awards, so let's not pretend, but yeah, this being basically the final game of this year is really fulfilling to me. Again, this game is super fun. If you ever watch me stream it, we stream it with the community, and again, it's super accessible to anybody to play, and anybody can win at any skill gap, because this game is just fun like that. But I'm very glad for all the people I've met and all the people who subscribed because of this game. I'm glad for all the people who still like the game and still play it. I'm very shout outs to various of the, you know, people who are the high ranking people who are also chill in the community, who are really nice and don't really do anything bad in the community to make people not encouraged to play the game. Because I think that's what this game does a lot better than, you know, the other couple of games that are racing games that came out this year. I think that this community who liked Sonic Racing Crossworlds has been the most positive, I think, for the kart racers that we got this year, have been kind of just positive about. And I'm just glad that I was a part of it. You know? And I'm very glad that I was able to say that this is my game of the year for this year, because for once in my life, you guys don't have to sit for me talking about a JRPG that you're probably not going to play, which is cool, because you guys can actually relate a little bit more to this. But also, I'm just happy to see that people are cheering for Sonic again, and that we're going into it the right direction, and hoping that everything for the next couple of years keeps up this momentum as we start, you know, hitting our goals and, you know, surpassing our times and time trials to make it to the next section of our lives. And ladies and gentlemen, we finally have come to the end of the games of this year for 2025. So how was that? Did you guys like the new changes I made for this Christmas gift that I give every year? I sure hope so. Like I said, again, we played a lot of games this year, and there was a lot more that I played that I didn't even talk about. Mostly because either I didn't finish them, or I didn't have the same passion that I did when I first originally played them. Just for a few examples that I still have written down. There was a game called Super Vibe that I played. Pretty cool for the couple of weeks I played it, then I kind of just stopped talking about it. There was one that I was going to talk about if I beat this year, but then it had a difficulty spike as hell, called Chris Tales, which was a cool JRPG that had future and past powers that you could use inside of battle and exploration. But unfortunately, that game had a difficulty spike of hell that I would not recommend now, because that difficulty spike of hell made me just quit the game. and some other stuff that I played too that I just don't have on my list anymore. Subnautica I played. Yeah, crazy. I know that I played Subnautica a little bit but never finished it. But listen, sometimes you gotta realize as an adult that time is a precious resource, and if you don't feel like you want to finish something, it's fine as long as you experienced it. And I got what I wanted out of the journey of that game, so I probably won't ever go back to that game. And maybe I'll give it another chance when I play, or if I decide to play Subnautica 2 whenever it releases next year. Because I'd be interested in at least trying to see if I like that game more than the original, because just like how Silksong was a game that I put on this year, I like that more than I like Hollow Knight, and I guess it's just the different timing, and or just because it was an experience I was experiencing with everybody else, I made it feel a little bit different, you know? But overall, I hope you guys liked how the format of this games of this year was this year. Like I said, I kind of made it more formatted so it's more friendly for watching. Again, all the chapters below will probably help you guys get through most of the stuff that you need to see. And like I said, I think having like a top 3 category for being the end of the video makes a lot more sense, instead of just kind of just having everything basically pushed around in a really weird way, and then just being like, oh yeah, here's my one game of the year. Because like this year specifically, there was way too many good games to just say I'm gonna just talk about, you know, a handful of them and then leave all the rest in the dust. Nah, I think we did a good thing by having the little intermission and everything else, and I'm very proud to have made content, a lot of content this year for streams. But I hope to lock in next year and actually make actual videos, because again, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, because, you know, the last thing I did this year that I did a full thing of is either play Sonic Riders, if you count that, because that was a 2-episode thing, or I guess you can talk about Aegis Rim, because also that should have been on the game of this year list too. But I already sung my praises about it a little bit last year when we talked about Unicorn Overlord, which was, I think, my game of the year last year. And also, I just think that if you see my playthrough of that game, you can probably see that I really like that game anyways. And it wasn't going to make it to this list anyways, because like I said, there were 3 games that literally came out of nowhere and being like, okay, cool, it basically absorbed most of my life. But either way, thank you guys for watching. I very much appreciate it, because again, I don't know how long this is. This is probably over an hour and a half at this point, if not longer. But I thank you guys for sticking tuned and watching my channel for as long as you have. It has been a decade and a half since we started this channel back in 2011. So, you know, I'm very grateful that if anybody of you stayed for this long, I'm very grateful. Still hoping to keep this channel going in the next upcoming years. Of course, I'm going to probably be changing and growing as a human being, as you always do, because I'm always going to be experimenting and doing things that I'm going to do for myself first and foremost. But I just want you guys to know that I am grateful that you're sticking around for the ride, even though I do a lot of experimental stuff or different stuff that you might not appreciate at first, but you might come back and look at later once you decide to give it a chance, and I appreciate all that. And again, I'm recording this at like almost 8 a.m. in the morning after waking up at 5 for some of the clips that we had, but I am still grateful for all of you who just stuck around. Because again, I really do have to emphasize this. I make content for myself, but you guys are the reason why it's easier to keep creating, because you guys keep coming back and keep enjoying stuff. And as long as I can make you guys smile and have hope for the future, that is all that I've ever cared about. And I'm glad that I'm still pushing that agenda, because, you know, as much as the world is getting more and more difficult as time goes on, I just want you guys to know that, yes, genuinely, regardless of anything, we'll still have video games, we'll still have the means to talk and connect through this art medium that we love and care about. And even if things are bad, you know, they will eventually get better, and you'll find things to give you hope and keep you pushing forward, right? Whether it's a racing game, whether it's a puzzle game, whether it's a horror game. And like, I'm hoping next year that we play a lot of things that we need to catch up on, because I have a backlog of stuff that I would like to play before all the new games release. So I'm gonna lock in a little bit and try to do as much as I can. Undertale and Deltarune fans, look out, because next year might be big for you. But I'm going to go ahead and end off, because my throat is killing me, because I've been talking now for, I would like to say, like about 50 minutes. And it's been showing, because I've been having to pause my recordings on Audacity every so often, just so I don't have a coughing fit, because I'm still recovering from that cold from like when I got Kirby Air Ride. So either way, very grateful to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll catch you guys in January for whatever video or crazy thing we do next. Ciao, ciao, until then.